Test.
Hey, good evening.
It's about to start.
Did you see that phone number by chance?
Right. What's that? Did you happen to find that phone number of the person who's going to call in? It should be under Chris Nicholas. Perfect. He's the one that's going to speak during public comment.
And is Melissa Finnegan there? She's a panelist. So Glenn Gazdick would be a panelist, right? Okay, thank you.
I'm here as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Okay, welcome to the Suffield Board of Education meeting of February 5th, 2024. I'm Maureen Satan. I am the board chair. And the first thing we will do is call the meeting to order at 6:29. And we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first item of business today is recognition, schools in the spotlight, and we are happy to have our ACES High Robotics program joining us. Superintendent Fantasso.
Thank you, Chair Satan, and thank you to Mr. Davis and all of our coaches who are here this evening for our ACES High Robotics team. They have an incredible little presentation that they would like to share with you all. With that, they did say that they're not unfortunately going to be able to stay with us this full meeting because they have practice that they have to get to after this. So, Mr. Davis, without further ado.
Thank you, Brenda.
All right. Thank you for having me tonight. We have currently approximately 40 students registered on the team. So what you see here is about half of our students. And we got a few slides we put together. I don't know how we're going to bring those up. All right, so thanks so much. Okay. Okay, go ahead. All right. So our teams have increased dramatically since prior to COVID. During COVID, all the teams kind of came down very precipitously during that year. We couldn't go, we couldn't travel. So now we have the biggest team that I've had since I started quite a long time ago. We have 33 actively registered students. We have about 7 more on the fringe right now. So we have 4 seniors that are going to graduate this year. We had 3 seniors graduate last year. And our team spreads, it really runs the gamut over the entirety of the classes. So it's not just all seniors, it's not all freshmen, it's the whole 4-year gamut, which is great. We also have 2 Lego teams that we supported this year. We expanded that program. We moved it from the local church into the classroom at Windsor Locks High School. So that way our students could mentor those teams. So they would come in an hour before our meetings would get started. So that's also been a great outreach for our team. ahead. So at this point, we're in the shop 7 days a week for the next 2 to 3 weeks. We started our build season the Saturday after New Year's with kickoff. This year's game is musical themed. It's called Crescendo. We started coming in 3 to 4 days a week during the month of January, and now we're in there every day, including Saturdays and Sundays. Our mentors have put in countless hours, and they've donated their own money over the years to help fund this program to make it successful. Our students regularly participate in outreach beyond just what we do with the robot. You'll see us at places like Suffield on the Green. You'll see us at STEM nights. You'll see us at youth services events. We're in the community as much as we're in the shop. So go ahead. So right here is an example of our project management chart. This was put together by our president. Our student president is Sarah. All right, so her, Nura, as well as a couple of our mentors sat down and they put together this Gantt chart, which shows all of our production goals for build season. And hopefully we'll meet all of them and maybe meet some of them a little bit early. All right, but this is one of the skill sets that we're trying to teach our students is project management. Go ahead. All right, the cost for this program is certainly not, it's certainly not free. It's $15,000 a year if we qualify all the way through to the World Championship in Houston. In the history of this team, I believe this is our 28th year. I think there's maybe been 3 years that this team did not qualify for the World Championship. So between outreach, materials, and equipment, the robot build, the robot itself is anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000. Our hotel costs, if we're lucky, we can get the hotel room for around $250 to $300 per kid. The transportation, again, if we book our flights early, this year we were lucky enough to get them around $300 per student. Other years, it's been tougher to do that. And then we have local events for which we need transportation. So all in all, there's quite a bit that goes into this program. And what you're going to see ultimately is the return on that investment. Go ahead. All right. So again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of outreach that we've done over the years. This is just a few. Suffield on the Green, Trunk or Treat. Earlier this year, for the first time, we put on a Red Cross blood drive right here at Suffield High School. We are also a 4-H affiliated team, so we participated in the 4-H Fort County Fair. And then we've been down to the Capitol, down in Hartford a few times, and we're hoping to go down there again this year. We put on our pasta supper at Father Ted Hall over at Sacred Heart Church. That's helped and sponsored by Suffield Pizza, as well as the Knights of Columbus. Go ahead. So the mentors that we have. So if you look in the back behind all of these kids, there's a lot of adults standing there. That's our mentors and coaches. Whether they're a parent of a kid on the team or they were a kid on the team themselves, they keep coming back, and they're engineers, they're designers, they're programmers, they're project managers, and they bring a wealth of critical knowledge to our students about what they can expect when they get out of high school and when they get into the job market. And, we talk about the return on investment. It's because of the connections with our mentors. It's because of their connections at what used to be Hamilton and now is Collins Aerospace that our students end up getting internships in college. Every year, our alumni end up coming back to this area to do engineering internships because of those connections. Go ahead. So now I'd like our seniors to stand up. Come on up here really quick. Okay, we have 4 seniors on the team this year. They're going to tell you really quick where they plan to go, what they plan to study, and one thing they learned from the team. So if you guys can step up to the mic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Michael. I'm a senior, and this is my 3rd year on the team. Currently, I just got accepted to Virginia Tech, and I think that is my top as of now. Something that I've learned a lot of things from the team, especially a lot of hard and soft skills. So one of the hard skills that I've learned is manufacturing, the whole process. I've learned how to use the Bridgeport. That's probably one of my favorite machines to use. I've also learned about the whole manufacturing process that goes into it, powder coating. We powder coat all of our aluminum parts, either red or black. I've also learned a lot of like leadership, like how to run meetings. I run all of the Wednesday meetings, as well as kind of like time management. As Mr. Davis said, like putting together that schedule. So those are just some of the things that I've gotten out of robotics. It's been a wonderful program. So
Thank you.
I'm gonna do their general engineering program. I'll probably go into environmental engineering. So yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Anna Lois Davis. I'm a senior on the team and I'm actually Mr. Davis's daughter. And I've been on the team for around 8 years now. And I was recently accepted to Yale University and I'm hoping to study biomedical engineering. A lot of the skills that I've learned in robotics, I was actually able to bring into my own like personal projects in terms of custom fabrication and creating my own like medical device inventions. So being able to obtain the skills from the mentors that we have on the team allowed me to take my knowledge outside of the shops that we have. And I hope to develop those further in college. So for that, I'm very grateful for our team.
Hi, I'm Michael Bukowinski. I'm a senior on the team, and then this is my 3rd year here. And I think the biggest thing that you learn while you're on the team is that robotics is just a giant community. Like if a team is like knocked out for whatever reason, and if we have like a part that could help them get back in the game, we will do it. We really want other people to succeed, not only just us, but just see what the robotics community can do for everyone. And for where I'm going for college, I am expecting to go to UConn for mechanical engineering. Haven't heard back yet, but they take forever. So yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Anthony Pierce. I'm from Suffield. I'm also a senior on the team. I do a lot of design aspect on this team. So designing the robot, testing prototypes, things like that to get the robot actually ready to be built and then programmed. First has taught me a lot, especially on this team. Of course, it has taught me the design things like CAD and other like simulation, even like I've been working with certain mechanical simulations. And also it has taught me valuable leadership skills on the team and how to collaborate. And as Mike said, it is a giant community. And I really believe that FIRST can make a difference in this community and elsewhere. And it has certainly made an impact on me. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm going to UConn to study aerospace engineering.
Thanks. So again, I go back to our return on the investment. That's the return on the investment. And then in a few years, some of them will likely be back looking like some of our mentors in the back, right? Working in local industry and hopefully helping the team or helping a team near them if they're not here. All right. Go ahead. So our wish list. Our wish list is to have a line item for registration. As you heard earlier, you know, it's $15,000 and may potentially go up in the upcoming years. Not having to worry about that would be, you know, great for the team. The ability to cut travel to 50%. Right now, the travel for our students is around $1,000 per student. All right, so if we can secure funds for that, so that way it's $500 per student, it makes it a lot easier for students to get from here to Houston. And then the big one, a building that would provide us with enough space to put up a practice field. The practice field itself is around $30,000. It needs a space that's at a minimum 70 foot by 30 or 40. And we need relatively high ceilings because sometimes the game requires us to shoot balls up high in the air to lob them into a goal. In addition, if that building could provide us enough space to have both the practice field and a meeting space and a maker space, that's the wish list. So it's the same wish list I told to the school board over at Windsor Locks the last time we went to one of their meetings. Okay. So we did get a generous donation for Bob Lowell. He sent me a letter and he asked me to read it the next time we were at the board meeting. So I'm going to read Bob's letter. Dear Suffield educators, I'm Bob Lowell. I served Suffield Board of Education for 34 years, beginning in 1983 through 2017. 10 years as a custodian, 14 years as a head custodian at Suffield High School. For my last 10 years, I served as advisor for the ski club and the Suffield advisor for the robotics Aces High Team 176. I also was the tech advisor for several theatrical productions under Stephanie Holland. I was also very active with the Suffield VOAG program, receiving their honorary Green Hand Award, one of my most prized possessions. I loved my years at Suffield High School. I'm writing you to ask you to increase funding to support the robotics program. I would like to point out these attributes of FIRST for inspiration and research and recognition of science and technology. No student is ever turned away from the team. There are the programming and designing teams for those who would prefer to work on the computer. There are the build teams for those who would like to make chips and sawdust. There are the marketing teams to help with creating banners, flyers, apparel. There is the drive team for those with the hand-eye coordination and the competitive edge to perform on the field. As an advisor, I felt it was part of my job to find a fit for any student who wanted to participate. There are about 40 teams at any given competition. There are 2 alliances on the field during competition. It takes 3 teams to form an alliance. That means there are 6 robots on the field at any one time. Competitions last for 3 days. Between rounds, the students circulate through the pits, exchanging ideas and parts, and looking for the best robots to team up with to form a winning alliance in the final rounds. Aces High 176 is one of over 6,000 teams worldwide. First Robotics began in Nashua, New Hampshire in 1990, and Aces joined as a team in 1995. Aces won a national title in 1999, the first team in Connecticut to become a national champion. Aces continues to be a powerhouse in New England. Aces has won the New England Regional Championship the last 2 years in a row, an accomplishment I'm not sure any other team has ever achieved. What other sports teams regularly compete at an international level? Not only do they compete against teams from all over the world, such as Brazil, Canada, China, Israel, and others, they also have a former Suffield alumni, Justin Foss, who is mentoring a team in Amsterdam. I do consider FIRST Robotics a sports team. It is an accomplishment for any team to qualify for the World Championship, and Aces does it year after year. Many competitions take place on college campuses, exposing most students to their first experience on a college campus. The team is made up of both boys and girls. It was my pleasure to watch them turn into young men and women. Many of our students come from Suffield. Aces High Team 176 has seen a significant drop in the corporate funding in the last 10 years. Collins Aerospace, formerly Hamilton, began as the team's primary sponsor in the late 1990s. At the time, they would fund the team's registration fully and give significant funding for materials to build the robot as well. There was a time when parts were machined in Hamilton shops and the mentors were allowed to bring materials to the school to help out the team, but that was long ago. At this point, the team's funding from Raytheon has dropped to $2,500 per year. While we are grateful for their continued support, this is not enough to cover registration for a single level of competition. If the team qualifies for the World Championship, the total registration is $15,000 and is expected to increase in the next few years. This does not include the $15,000 to $20,000 that is spent on the robot itself, nor the travel expenses that the students put in, $1,000 to $1,200 each. The team and its mentors and coaches all work hard to raise funds each year to keep the cost down and try to make it affordable for all students to travel to World Championships. To this end, I am pledging a contribution of $5,000 for this team. This is not a small sum of money, but I am passionate about FIRST Robotics. I am hoping you can offer similar support for this season. More importantly, more support for future seasons. I believe the biggest need is to increase the payment for the advisor or coach to the level that is commensurate to any other sports teams or equal to what Windsor Locks and other schools offer. I did my best and hope I made a good advisor, but I always felt that others could have done better. I was the only one who would accept the position for $600 a year. The season lasts for the first Saturday in January when they receive the game until May. However, robotics is a year-round program with programming classes and practice through the summer and fall. I would invite anyone to visit the shop during build season and see the whole team in action. I know they would love to show off their stuff. Sincerely, Robert Lowell. Now, since this letter was written in December, I was informed that the board has put money into the budget for us. So for that, I am grateful and I thank you. Know that our expenses are large and we want to do everything we can to make it affordable for our kids to get to Worlds. So that said, I think we have a short video. Maybe. Hold on. So this is just a short 2-minute excerpt of some of what's going on right now in the shop. So this is a new saw that we got with a Zach grant this year. So, and here's a quick sneak peek. If you look, you'll see the foam donut in the middle of our robot. This was a rendering of our current design. So please don't tell the other teams. It's not public yet. One last point I wanted to make. I've been a shop teacher for almost 20 years now. One of the greatest things for me was working in the shop this weekend to see all 7 spindles of every CNC machine we own running at the control of our students and our mentors and our team. And that was awesome. So, thank you very much.
So, thank you, Mr. Davis. And I do want to say thank you to all of our parents and the mentors, as well as the students who came here tonight to share a little bit about that program. This has been a real self-sustaining program. And I had known of ACES High many years ago, back when I was a teacher in West Hartford, and one of my colleagues was one of the teachers of this program. That was over 20 years ago. And I remember hearing about it so much back then. But to see it evolve through the years, but also being self-sustaining, they have gone out, solicited funds from a lot of corporations through the years, and there really hasn't been a high demand on the school district to provide funding. As Mr. Davis did share with you, I knew that there was conversations that we had in the past about perhaps building some funding within the budget. So we'll talk further about that. But in your budget proposal, we did put $10,000 annually into the budget, which then certainly would help in this program. And we'll have further conversations with the board as you deliberate. But it is a wonderful program. And what a nice touch to hear about the seniors and where the seniors have actually taken their experiences in this program and where they're looking to head. And the fact that there is nothing to say that for all of you, the things that you're doing with project management, even I as a superintendent, feel that my life these days is about project management. So the experience that you're gaining from just doing that alone is just something that will be there with you for the rest of your lives. So really nice job on the presentation. But board members, questions?
This is a remarkable presentation. You're a remarkable bunch. You're clearly our academic high flyers, and I commend you guys for that. Appreciate the presentation today. What you're doing is cutting edge stuff, the kind of materials you're working with, the technology you're learning and talking about. And thanks also to the mentors who I'm sure the projects can't happen. This group wouldn't exist without. I'm happy to know that we're going to be looking at funding. This is the sort of thing that I personally think we need to be making an investment in. And so I anticipate this to have my support going forward. I have a question for you without blowing any trade secrets or releasing anything to our international competitors. I'm guessing you said end of January, you get your game, right? And that's so you presumably know what the plan is.
Yes.
What's the exciting new thing this year that you guys are challenged to do, or the new idea that you have for the robotic for your competition?
So this year's game focuses around that central foam ring or foam donut. It's about, I think you said it was 14 inches diameter. So being able to manipulate that to shoot it up into eye goal, to get it into a lower goal that's at a vertical angle, and then to be able to climb up on a chain and do that with maneuverability under lower obstacles, that's going to be the trick. So as you saw from that short GIF at the end that Anthony rendered out for us this afternoon, we're looking for a small package that can achieve all of those things quickly and with a high degree of dexterity.
Terrific. I wish you the best with the competition. I can't wait to hear back the results.
I have a question,
Mhm.
if I might. Thank you so much for the presentation, and I do apologize for being late, family delays, but I am just wondering, and you might have already answered this, and I apologize for not knowing it because I should. You mentioned a desire for a new space. So I'm wondering where you currently are, where you meet, where you build, where you practice.
Sure. So for our team, we meet in the shops at Windsor Locks High School, which is where I teach. So we occupy about 5 rooms, really. From time to time, we go into the graphic shop to do some of our marketing stuff. So sometimes 7 rooms. So we've used space there that, has allowed us to fabricate everything, put everything together, test our prototypes. They've allowed us to use some of the deep storage space behind that to lay out a carpet to do some practice runs, but it's not big enough for a full field. What I told them was that they recently put up a new maintenance garage, that it was a 6-bay garage. And I was curious, what would it cost to build another one of those right next to it? But only put in 1 garage door because we don't have that many cars coming in and out. And what they told me was it's around $200,000 to get that in the ground. Now, I don't know if that changes with, skylights and maybe a little bit of heat because it gets cold in the wintertime when we're in the shops. But certainly that's a place to start. As far as practice goes, we go to whatever practice field we can get access to. Sometimes that means driving down to Southington. Sometimes that means going to Enfield. We were recently notified that WPI was setting up a practice field. I don't know if we're going to take advantage of that when that's a little bit of a haul. But ultimately, for us to be competitive, our drive team, after probably next week, our drive team will start going several times a week for whatever access they can get for practice. So.
Thank you. I appreciate all of that information.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great. Okay. Well, so on behalf of the entire board, I want to thank you and everyone who came up today, even the people not wearing red shirts. So thank you. We do support the program. I know many people who have benefited from it, and we look forward to hearing all sorts of new good news as you go through competition season this semester. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
And we will be in the shop every night, including Saturday and Sunday for the next 2 weeks. So if any of you would like to come by, please reach out to me. We'd be happy to show you guys around. We'll give you some safety glasses and show you a good time.
I just need a lesson on how you score. I don't know if you've ever watched it. You were live streaming it last year, and I couldn't make sense of how everybody scores it. So a lesson on that would be really great for me at some point in time in the future. So I will be there to get my lesson.
Thank you very much for having us. All right, guys, back to work.
Thank you. All right, we'll just hold 1 minute while they exit the room and then we'll continue. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is the Suffield High School student representatives. Why don't we start with Milo Graham?
Good evening. Okay. For today's update, I'm going to be starting with the middle school, where they had a very busy month. Firstly, the boys and girls basketball teams are having an excellent season, and they are anticipating participating in their respective league tournaments pretty soon. This past Thursday, Kelly Giannuzzi, I believe is how you say it, the Director of Youth Services, has taken initiative with middle school students to start a junior youth leadership council, which will concentrate on engaging in students in positive activities to better the students' environment. In upcoming news this Thursday, approximately 50 Suffield Middle School students have been selected to participate in the National Assessment of Educational Progress. And as mentioned in the last update, beginning last week, the middle school is taking initiative to reward positive behaviors from students with affirmation tickets, which I think is a fantastic idea. These tickets can allow them to do things like enter raffles or get gift cards or have like special privileges during lunch at school to see their friends. And lastly, for the middle school, we are all looking forward to the debut of Beauty and the Beast Junior on February 29th and through March 2nd. Moving on to the high school, I would like to begin by mentioning the success of the Coffee House concert held on February 1st. The funds collected from food sales are directly benefiting the music department, and we all appreciate that support so much. And more music news, the All District Band Festival is happening tomorrow night, so I would also like to recognize that. As we're sitting here tonight, the girls' basketball senior night is happening and giving all of our seniors the recognition they deserve. And I would also like to recognize that the indoor track season at Suffield High School was a great success. We have several upcoming events, including the volleyball marathon, which will be held on March 21st this year, as well as the winter dance that is coming on this Saturday, I believe, February 10th. And lastly, just a friendly reminder to parents and students that course selections for next year are now open and the counselors are available to meet with students and families to discuss future plans. Thank you, that's all.
Great, thank you, Milo. Kyla.
Okay, not too much this time, but starting with Spalding, they have just today celebrated their 100th day of school. So each kid got to have their own little class celebration and they got to hang out and have a little party. And also at Spalding, second graders have moved on from their coding unit, and they're now taking those skills, actually quite coincidentally, into robotics. And they're doing a Lego robotics unit right now, and they're going to use those application skills that they learned in coding in order to, I'm sure, succeed and thrive at this unit. Also at Spalding, they have blown it out of the park with composting. Last month in December, they didn't even compost the whole month of December. They had 1,440 pounds of compost. This past month in January, their first full month, 2,016 pounds of compost. That's almost a ton. It's so incredible, especially compared to the high school. January, we only had like 300 pounds of compost. Like, they're doing really, really good. McAllister too, they've had a lot of fun the last month. They had their ping pong tournament where they got to bring a special adult in their life and they got to have them work as a team together against other students and adults and have a little ping pong competition. The 5th grade student council has been very active and they're hosting a toy drive currently in order to raise money. And then also 5th grade has been they've been working to further their initiatives of having more school assemblies. And that's more with the student council. And they've been really trying to uplift student positivity and make sure that everyone's engaged and doing the best that they can.
Great. Thank you for that update. Do any board members have any quick questions for them or press on? Okay. Thank you both for the updates. We appreciate the insight into those buildings. Now we're going to move on to the public comment. So this is the reminder, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The first public comment is limited to 30 minutes. Please identify yourself and your home address for the record. We will look first in the room to see if there's anyone who'd like to make any public comment at this time. Okay, please move to the podium. Make sure you are green lit on the microphone. You're good to go.
Sarah Oliver, 1434 Hill Street.
Okay. Good evening, Sarah Oliver, 1434 Hill Street. Hi, everyone. I am one of the agri-science teachers here at the high school. And I'm excited tonight to just talk to you guys and share a few things about a few of our seniors that are going to talk just during public comment, not for very long. We are coming off of a couple of weeks ago, we had 38 of our seniors presented their capstone presentations. So we still do senior capstone presentations, and every year our students present about their SAE projects and their growth in the program, in the agri-science program. And so what we just wanted to do is I will introduce Griffin and Izzy, who are both Suffield residents as well, who have decided over the last 4 years to spend time in the ag program as well. And they have completed or in the process of completing the agri-science program requirements. And it's so exciting to see also a few of our students in robotics, you know, and other programs across the whole Suffield School District. And that's what's awesome, is that our students, our agri-science students, are Suffield High School students, but they're also members of our community, all in all different forms: athletics, robotics, you know, arts, music. And that means a lot to us because we care a lot about our students as students. And that's what's awesome. I asked some people that are board members in other districts, why do you do this job? And they said, because we care about the students of our town. And I know that's why you guys are here this evening. So without further ado, I have Griffin Mandarola. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Griffin Mandarola. I live at 1667 Hill Street. I'm a 12th grade student here at the Suffield FFA program. Throughout my career in high school and in the program, I have learned many skills such as public speaking and problem solving. 4 years ago, I never would have thought that I'd be able to stand up here and talk in front of all of you. My SAE project consists of me working on my family's 11th generation, 350-acre organic vegetable farm. Because of this program, I have learned that I want to continue my agriculture education in college. I will be continuing to study ag business at UConn next year. Throughout this program, I've learned many life skills that will help me throughout my future. And I look forward to continuing at UConn next year, like I said. So thank you for this opportunity, for allowing us to go through the ag program. I couldn't imagine my high school career without it. So thank you.
Thank you, Griffin.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. My name is Isabel Sorrow. I live at 2609 Mountain Road, West Suffield. First off, thank you for having me here. I entered this program as a freshman, and I can tell you that I was absolutely terrified. I was nervous to be in high school and a little scared to be trying something new. But here I am, a senior, and I'm also a state officer for FFA. Now, many of you might not know what that entails, but it means that I not only get the opportunity to represent my program here at Suffield, but I also get to go to the other 21 chapters we have across this state. I get to run various workshops and work with various students across the state and get to learn a lot of different perspectives. I just want to touch on that because it's been amazing to look at what our program offers versus what so many others offer. And I really have to say that we have something incredibly special here at Suffield. Our teachers are always making it so we can go to every opportunity, from going to our state convention to competing in various different competitions. It's been amazing to get to have these opportunities. We've gotten to be able to go to national convention, which is not something that's to the faint of heart. It's really an incredible experience. And for some people, a once in a lifetime experience to get to sit in a stadium with 30,000 FFA members and see all the Blue Jackets across the stadium. I've learned so much through the program, not only with public speaking, but how to work with others and how to do just various different things. And our program is not just an in the classroom thing. We go home and we bring all the skills that we learn from our classroom experiences and our experiences with the different competitions we compete in. I started off raising chickens, and I'm here today running a small pig farm. And I haven't just learned agricultural skills from this. I've been able to learn how to speak to others and how to communicate with buyers and how to communicate with my butchers for the pigs. So overall, the program has been incredible to us. And I know if any of my other seniors or underclassmen were up here speaking to you, they'd have so much to say about how many opportunities we've been given. But, and I know I'm not necessarily going into an agricultural career in my future as I'm looking to go into engineering, but I know that I'm going to take every skill that I've learned here and bring it towards that. So thank you so much for letting us speak tonight.
Great. Thank you for your public comment. Thanks to both of you. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to add their voice to public comment? Okay, we will move online and let me see, is there anyone who'd like to contribute online? Okay,
Yes.
looks like, yep, Chris, we see you and I think you're good to go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we're good.
Great. Thank you very much for taking time tonight. My name is Chris Nicolas. I live at 162 Quail Run Road with my wife Denise and our 3 children, who are all students at Suffield High. And I apologize for not being there in person tonight. I'm in San Jose for work, and I appreciate you allowing me to speak with you by this video call. I'm here tonight representing the NORCON Attack Travel Baseball Program, of which I am a board member. We are a 3-year-old program now, including 3 teams, 12U, 13U, and 15U. We play our home games and hold practices primarily at Suffield High using the baseball and softball fields. Attack Baseball was created to provide our teams and players the opportunity to play against top regional competition at the lowest cost to our players and their families. And we aim to fill the gap between our players' little league and high school years, ensuring they are prepared to meet the challenges of high school athletics. We understand that a cost could be attached to using the Suffield High baseball and softball fields going forward. We fully understand and agree with the need to support Suffield High School and field upkeep and maintenance. It is a privilege to use those fields and not a right. To that point, as a program, last year we donated $500 to the Suffield High School Athletics Program on our own and with no prompting. We did so to show our appreciation to the school and town for use of the fields. After conversations with Superintendent Van Tassel, Athletic Director Zenzak, and BOE member Fry, it is our understanding that the fee could be $20 per hour for all games and practices. Based on our schedule from 2023 and our expected 24 schedule, that will total between $3,500 and $4,000 for our program, which is significant. The decision to add a fee was made without any notice to the programs that use the field or the opportunity to discuss with the board beforehand. And the news also came after our 24 rosters and tuition payments had been set and much of our fundraising and sponsorship efforts had been completed. We are a not-for-profit program, not a 501c3. Coaches are unpaid. Coaches' children pay full tuition, and all funds stay within the program. No coach or board member is paid for their time, commitment, or involvement or profits in any way from the program. It is also worth noting that 12 attack players and 5 attack coaches or board members, including myself, are Suffield residents. And as Suffield taxpayers, their families are already indirectly helping towards the cost of maintaining the fields. It has also been reported to me that the field may have been inadvertently damaged by another team last year. If that is the case, that matter should be addressed with that program and perhaps their coaches directly. I know for the attack, we would have taken any steps needed to make that right immediately. We are baseball people who grew up playing and loving the game. 4 coaches and board members were Suffield Little League coaches and board members for significant periods of time in leadership roles. Other attack players live in Simsbury, Granby, East Granby, and Windsor. We take care of the fields, we rake them, we clean the dugouts after each game of practice. We always cover the fields, the mound and the plate, and otherwise take good care of it. In our first year, we actually paid someone on our own to cut the grass prior to a game to limit any extra damage to the field. Perhaps a one-page user guide can be drafted for any team using the fields or turf or gym that must be signed and agreed upon before Suffield High courts or fields can be used. And again, we are glad to help support Suffield High School in maintaining the fields, but ask that the amount be reconsidered, perhaps finding a suitable middle ground. A one-time annual fee that could be arranged rather than a per-hour cost, and that Suffield representation on teams could also be considered as part of a staggered fee structure. I do appreciate your time. I appreciate all you all do there for the teachers and the students and the schools and the people of the town. I appreciate your time tonight, and I'm glad to take any questions.
Chris, thanks for your public comment. I did just want to clarify one thing, which is that this was proposed and discussed in a policy subcommittee meeting, but it was not yet voted on by the full board. So I thought you might have said that it was done already before notice or whatever went out for a response, but that's not the case. That it was discussed, but not yet brought to the full board.
Yeah. To be clear, that is my understanding, that it's not done, and we hope to have the discussion before it might be.
Very good. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Nicholas? Okay, no one in the room. Is there anyone online? We do have 2 board members online tonight. Okay.
No questions here.
No questions? Okay. Great. Chris, thank you for your input. And I believe this policy is going to be rediscussed before it would even come to the board, and you'll see it on agenda if it does get advanced.
That's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay. Yep. Is there anyone else online who would like to offer public comment? Okay, I hear none, so we will press on. This will be the opportunity for board member comments. Rather than going mostly alphabetical, I'm just going to do the internal people and then I'll go to online people. Deb, do you have any public comment?
I do have a few things, if I may. First of all, would like to thank the robotics team for the presentation tonight again, as well as everyone who spoke during public comment. Always like to hear about the AgriSci program. And Chris, thank you as well for your comments on the athletic fees. Second of all, I know we're in the middle of budget season. I know I've said it before, but I do want to say again that I really do appreciate the thorough presentations that we've had. As well as the transparency going through the budget process. So always appreciate that and look forward to the rest of discussions during budget season. Lastly, I just wanted to note, as we all know, that it is Black History Month, and I would love an update as far as how the district honors that and the schools honor that going forward as well, and changes that have been made year over year. So I believe that wraps up my comment. Thank you.
Great. Going down the line, Brian Fry, do you have board member comment?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you also to Chris, if you're still here with us. Chris and I, like you mentioned, did have a conversation about this. He made a lot of good points about the impact that this will have on a really good, important organization, not just his, but others that might be affected. So this will be discussed again at our next to be scheduled policy subcommittee meeting. And the impact that this is going to have on the community is going to be discussed further and taken very, very seriously. Thank you to Elizabeth and Griffin. If you guys they took off, they had a basketball game, they wanted to go see it. Yeah, don't blame them. Yeah, okay. Well, please tell them and Elizabeth that we said thank you for coming out, and all the best to them in their future. Like Deborah said, this is Black History Month. And while I can't give the answer that you were looking for, I do know that my boys were each able to give me examples of things that they've been doing in the classroom as part of their learning initiative towards it. So I'm hopeful that our students are able to learn throughout the month and place this special emphasis on learning Black history. I also was reminded of something, as I often am by Facebook reminders, that it was this day in 2013 that it became official that Suffield Public Schools offered full day kindergarten to all of our students. And with more than a decade now under our belt, it kind of feels like it's always been there, but it hasn't always been there. It started off as an initiative. It started off as needing will. It started off as needing support and financing and backing. To be the thing that I think is a great success and something we'll probably never look back from. I'm hopeful that we'll continue to keep the ball rolling when it comes to keeping a robust preschool program going forward, that we have the hours that our kids need, and that we ultimately will find a path towards towards preschool programming for all Suffield students. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, Sam Toskin.
Thank you. Join the rest of the board members here in saying a job well done to our robotics and agri-science students who came here today to give us a peek under the hood as to what they're working on. Really, really impressive young ladies and men. Great job, well done. And what a wonderful way to see, you know, STEM put into actual action. So kudos to them. And also I just want to congratulate our music department and the students for the coffee hour that I was fortunate enough to attend. Really job well done there as well. So kudos to them. Thank you.
Great. And Josh.
I really enjoyed the robotics presentation. It was really cool. I don't know if they had anything like that at my school when I was in high school, so it'd been really cool to kind of participate in. So I did have a few comments, and it's kind of a change of tone, and I apologize. I don't mean to set a bad mood, but it was brought to my attention over the weekend about a student had come forward and under some circumstances about material in the classroom, how material was explicit in nature, that it was around a subject that was very divisive. And, you know, it was difficult because I do sympathize with, you know, the understanding of the parents that, you know, they don't necessarily aren't looking for anything to be done as far as any sort of special, you know, anything. They just want their kids to be left alone. But this material was handed out by a teacher that in my opinion, understood the rules of like kind of how Suffield is and around these types of topics. So I did tell the parent that I would bring it up in public comment because I did feel like it was important to me. I have two girls in the school, and you know, in my opinion, with something of this nature that is as kind of, you know, there's a big divide in the prescription for these and this particular topic. I would like to see it discussed at a board level. I would like to see what is being done with the teacher. It was to my knowledge that this was a partnership with UConn for this program, and that the explanation was that UConn is the one who controls materials. That to me is not an excuse that is acceptable. You know, as a teacher, if you're handing out materials to someone, you should be vetting the materials. And if the school has a policy on certain materials not being handed out, then those, like, you need to follow the school's policy because they are trusting their kids with these teachers. And, you know, this particular student did ask for an alternative assignment, which was not offered to her until it was made an issue, and now is being offered to her. And I think if we have rules around these types of things, they should be followed regardless of whether it's a partnership program or not. So that's all I got.
Okay. Thanks, Josh. Let's go to the Zoom call. Let's start with Glenn. I see you up there.
Yes, it's as usual. Thank you very much for the public comment. It's always very good to hear from the community. And then to wishing the robotics club the best for the outcome in May.
Very good. And Melissa Finnegan.
Hi guys, yeah, I basically just same as everyone said, the robotics, I think that's really impressive and wish I could have been there to see it, so I apologize for having to be online. And I think that, you know, and obviously, to see where they're going off to school and what they'll be doing in the future, it just shows that these types of programs are so important, and I hope we can keep continuing the sport.
Okay, great. Thank you, Melissa. And now I have no comments, so we can press on for reports to the board. Superintendent Van Tassel.
Many school-based recognitions to note this evening. First, although she has left, I was hoping that she would be here to give the recognition. So our very own Kyla Silva was a national semifinalist in Eco America's American Climate Leadership Award for high school students. She has already won a $5,000 scholar award and is now competing for a $10,000 prize. Her submission was on the Walk to the Heart endeavor, and really the where she situated her application for recognition was the importance of engaging youth in change initiatives. So congratulations to Kyla for that wonderful recognition that she has already received. I do want to thank and congratulate all of our senior winter athletes who are celebrating their senior nights as our seasons come to an end. Also to the boys and girls indoor track teams, both of them did win the NCCC, and now they go on to states this upcoming weekend. The volleyball team from this past fall was notified that they received the 2023 Connecticut Board of Volleyball Officials Barbara J. Startup Sportsmanship Award. One team within the North Central region is awarded this special recognition each year for the purposes of spirit, camaraderie, sportsmanship. And the members of that team have all certainly demonstrated that over the course of the season. So congratulations to the fall volleyball team. I also want to give note, as you are all aware, the Megan Boisine Foundation here within town has supported a lot of student endeavors that have helped to bring about special acts of kindness within the Suffield community. Most recently, we were notified that they also did provide several grants to school district teachers. So we have multiple grants, Mrs. Rom's 8th grade flex group for Kindness Grows, a Cookies for Kindness for Mrs. Porter's middle school foods classes, a kindness project called the Free Little Library for Mrs. Tierney, Carrie Mashad Bagley, and Mr. Cuddley's art project. There was a Kindness Rocks grant that was given, a Kindness Rocks garden from McAllister Student Council. They had applied. There was an Empty Bowl project that McAllister Spalding had put together through their art departments called the Soup and Sing. That was funded, as well as Morgan's Message dedication at a lacrosse game for the Suffield High School girls lacrosse. So thank you again to the Voisine family for continuing to fund these endeavors. They are certainly helping our community come to new levels here in regards to kindness. So thank you. As Milo mentioned, he had noted that tomorrow night is a very special district band festival. I wanted to let the board members be aware of it. It is in the Suffield High School gymnasium. It is at 6 o'clock, and it is the first of what we hope to see many be, which is in a district-wide band event that's taking place here. Just in terms of the Suffield Middle School projects, at this point, we had hoped to schedule a meeting with the Board of Selectmen from town. The planned meeting was going to be on February 8th. Unfortunately, Board of Selectmen could not get a quorum for that date. So we are going to try to put something on the books for either the end of February or the beginning of March for us to be able to share with the Board of Selectmen our position on the hopes of a new middle school. I will let the board be aware of when that meeting is rescheduled as soon as we're able to do that. So just please stay tuned. Would like to note something from our special education department, as well as the great work that's happening within our special education teams in all of our schools. Connecticut State Department of Education is required to report annually on the public on the performance of each school district in relation to the targets that are set forth in our state performance plans under IDEA, which is the federal law surrounding special education students with disabilities. Upon their review of our data, the state has to determine whether each district meets a particular standard. The determinations are based on suspension expulsion rates, disproportionate representation with particular disabilities within categories, meeting timelines according to the evaluation cycles, preschool transition, secondary transition, supervision of programming, the collection of timely and accurate data. And another indicator on it is the chronic absenteeism rate for the students with disabilities. I would like to inform the board that our district does meet requirements for 2023. We received our communication from the State Department of Education this past week to acknowledge that we have met requirements for the state based on all of those categories. So thank you to our special education teams and leadership within the district. On February 15th, on Thursday, February 15th, I'll be attending legislative breakfast through the Connecticut Associations of Boards of Education, as well as the Hartford Area Superintendent's Association. Chair Satan may be joining as well. It's a breakfast, an annual breakfast that's held where you meet with legislators before we actually enter into the legislative session. This year, as you're all aware, this is a short session. This is only running, this session this year is just running from February 7th to May 8th, whereas in the longer session, it's January to June. So this is short session this year. Representative Zalastowski, I've already spoken with. She does plan to be at this legislative breakfast. It's going to be at the state capitol, but it's an opportunity for us just to be able to meet with them and talk about some of the things that are concerning to us as they're entering into their legislative season. Certainly one thing to note that we'll be bringing up, we received notification last week that out of the 75% of reimbursement that we should be getting to the Suffield Public School District for excess costs that we budgeted to have available to us this year, the state informed us that for the year, fiscal year 2024, the year that we are currently in, they're not fully funding that. So we will not be seeing 75%. We will be seeing 70.825. Is that the 70.5 as opposed to the 75%, which we were supposedly going to receive. And that's tough because we budgeted to receive those funds and we budget those at net, which means that we have those dollars expended in our budget before we even receive them. So to receive word in January that you're not going to be fully funded. In fact, you're going to be 5% less than what you should be getting is a significant issue for us. So I do plan to bring that up at the legislative breakfast as well as a few other things. And then the last thing to make note of is this is Black History Month. We would be certainly happy to share reports on what it is that we're doing within each of those schools. I'll gather reports from each of the schools and then I can forward that to the Board of Education so that you could be aware. It just so happens that I was coming in tonight and there's a beautiful bulletin board that's out here that denotes significant Black figures that have had an impact to our America here. And so those are up there, but I know that there are celebrations happening within each of our schools. So we can get that information to you as we celebrate Black History Month. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Superintendent Van Tassel. We'll move on to the board chair's report. So mostly I just try to tell you what I've done behind your backs and what I'm going to do behind your backs. Since our last business meeting, I've represented the board and sometimes along with other board members at the superintendent's coffee talk, the Teamsters negotiation planning meeting, the ACE Commission walkthrough along with Sam and some of our calendar committee representatives. And Deb, Melissa Finnegan, and I have met as a leadership team to discuss the middle school building project, just kind of planning and trying to manage that as we move forward. This coming month, we have a regular board meeting on February 22nd, which is the Thursday after President's Day. So that's a non-Monday because we have an extended vacation break and then a PD day on that Wednesday. We are also expecting to place an additional night for an executive session to at least cover the superintendent's mid-year evaluation, and that will possibly be targeted for next Monday. So I will get back to you and we'll firm that up. I think it's next Monday, right? For sure. Okay. And I will be representing the BOE at several meetings around the district, including a graduation preparation meeting, which got pushed to Wednesday morning. There are student achievement meetings at all 4 schools that I think you've gotten communication about. If you'd like to join in, please RSVP so they can expect your attendance. And Tim already mentioned the legislative breakfast, and so far I am planning to attend that. That is my update, and we can move immediately to the business manager's report.
Okay, thank you. So our focus, as you might imagine, as you prepare to deliberate the budget, has been on refining the budget. So many of the numbers in the budget are estimates based on the best information we had at the time we developed the numbers. So we continue to refine and validate the numbers in the budget. I've done an extensive amount of work on the fiscal 24 financial statements, and we have a discussion item later on the agenda to talk about that. As far as food service goes, staffing has been relatively stable. The thing that continues to challenge us is the negative balances. So students that are buying lunch or being provided lunch and not paying for it. So that as of the end of January, that negative balance had grown to $8,300. In that there's 22 families that account for $4,800 of that $8,300 balance. So I've been involved in many conversations with other districts and with peers, and nobody's come up with a way to solve this problem. The good news is that we're in better shape than many other districts, but it's a problem statewide, and there really is no solution. Nobody's found anything that works to collect these balances. That the state has really tied our hands and made it very difficult for us to collect these balances. So we continue to provide or to conduct outreach. Everybody gets an email. Every parent of a child with a negative balance gets an email every week. We've sent letters home. I've made phone calls, and nothing works. People just are ignoring the obligation. So that continues to be a challenge, and it does consume an inordinate amount of time to deal with that. The other thing related to food services that we did end last year with a sizable excess fund balance, and I'm working on a plan that we need to provide to the state as to how we're going to work that down. So it was the balance was hundreds of thousands of dollars at the end of last year, the excess balance. So we're looking at some sizable capital improvements in the kitchens, which obviously we'll bring to the board before we embark on any of that. But just want to let you know that we are working on a plan to spend down that balance. And last thing is transportation has been operating relatively smoothly. There are issues that come up every day, but I think for the most part that's seamless to most people. In both of our new vans, both our new special education van and our new activity van are both operational and registered, which was no easy feat to get both of them registered. We failed safety inspections on both, but I learned a lot through the process on how to deal with the DMV. And our activity van is actually now being used. It was used as recently as last Friday for a student outing. So that's what I have.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Eric at this time? Okay, we can move on then. I can tell you that Brian Cost is the Board of Finance liaison. He is on, but did not have an update. The Board of Finance has not met since he was last with us. So Brian, if you want to jump in or otherwise speak, I think you have the ability to, we can link you in. I'm not sure what you're seeing on your side, but just so you know, you can interrupt if need be. And I don't see a Board of Selectmen. So we are going to hop straight through to the approval of minutes.
Oh, I'm a panelist now, but I don't have anything to report right now. We haven't had a meeting yet.
Okay, great, Brian. Thank you. Glad you can participate. Okay, so before we move on the approval of minutes, I will need a motion.
I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 2nd, January 16th, and January 29th, 2024 board meetings. The first two being regular meetings, the third being a special board meeting.
Thank you, Deb. May I have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, that's Sam Toscan. Is there any discussion on these minutes? I don't see any in the room unless I hear from anyone on Zoom. All right, let's call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I think I heard both our Zoom attendees, so that makes that unanimous. The minutes have been approved. And we can move on to the consent agenda. To process the consent agenda, why don't we start with a motion?
Make a motion.
Thanks.
This is Brian Fry. I move to approve the revisions to the policies listed under the consent agenda.
I will second the motion.
Okay, so Brian and then Deb is gonna second. I'm just gonna enumerate them for the record. It's policy 6146, the graduation requirements, the 4112.4 employee health exams, and bylaw 9130, which it's a bylaw, so it does not need to get approved, I think. So he did say the motion is to approve the policies there. So we will go forward. Is there any discussion on those policies? I'm seeing none in the room. I'm seeing none on Zoom. I will call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Motion passes unanimously and we can press on. Discussion action item A, December financial report. We will move back to the business manager, Harrington. Remington. We'll fix that in post-production. Just kidding.
Okay, so if you look at the December financial report, that's the document with the gold bar on the right-hand side. Yours may be in black and white. This is our December financials. So just to remind you, the column on the far right is what we expect the balance of individual line items to be at the end of the year, either from a surplus or a deficit standpoint. So I've also done a worksheet that has the highlights on it that might be easier to follow. So that's this document that says projected budget surpluses and deficits. So as you can see, right now we're projecting that we will have an $81,000 surplus in salaries. Keep in mind that we budget a $200,000 negative item in salaries because we expect that that we will not spend all the salary dollars that we budget. So we budget $24 million in salaries. There's 350 or so positions, but there's just no way that we can physically have all 350 positions filled for the entire year. So that's why we budget a negative 200,000 in the salary item, with the recognition that we're never going to spend all of the money that we budget. So the 81,000 actually represents a $281,000 savings over the salaries that we budgeted. The next item is health insurance. So right now we're looking at a very sizable surplus in health insurance. There's several factors that contribute to that. One is that we've got significantly less people covered than we had budgeted for. I believe it's 22 positions that we had budgeted is benefit eligible that people have not elected benefits. And also the premium rate has been is a slightly lower than what was budgeted. So we've also had some favorable mix in that we've got fewer people electing family coverage and more people electing single plus one coverage. So all those things contribute to what right now looks like it will be a very sizable surplus in health insurance at the end of the year. I'll move on to student transportation. So as you may recall, we budgeted to run 17 buses this year. We're only running 14. So we're showing a very sizable surplus on the transportation line. Many of these other items, so the way we project the year-end surplus is we assume that we will spend everything that was budgeted. So some of these are showing negative amounts because we've overrun certain line items. Some of that will get cleared up as we dig into the numbers and we reallocate some of the numbers because things get booked where they not necessarily in the right line item. So I think some of these will disappear as we go through the balance of the year. The one thing I would highlight is the fire code expenses. So those are expenses that we had to incur related to inspections from the fire marshal. Those were unbudgeted. So, at this point, it looks like we're able to absorb those unbudgeted expenses, but they do total almost $63,000. So if you look at everything that's not everything but special ed, we're right now projecting about a $307,000 surplus in those line items for the full year. So the bottom section of this worksheet is special education. And there's a lot of moving parts and pieces here. But so our costs are expected to be higher in several line items, specifically tuition and transportation. So these are students that are placed out of district where we pay tuition and we have to pay transportation to transport students to those places where they're outplaced. The offset to that is that if they go over the threshold, we do get some of that back from the state. Dr. Van Tassel mentioned the excess cost reimbursement. So we do get reimbursed by the state for some of that money. And then if they're students from the choice program, we do get reimbursed 100% for the costs, the special ed costs of choice students. So in some cases, you see the cost significantly higher, but there are offsets for reimbursement, both from excess cost and choice. And I have reflected on here the fact that, as we mentioned, we budgeted that we received 75% of our excess cost reimbursement. We now know we're only going to get 70.5%. So that is about a $77,000 hit to our budget this year. So the bottom line is that right now we're projecting that special ed is going to be about $295,000 over what we had budgeted for the full year. So when you combine that with where we are in the non-special ed items, right now it looks like we're about even, or we'll have a small surplus for the year. And again, this is based on the best information we have at this time, and we'll continue to refine all these numbers as we move forward.
Business manager Remington, if you could just do me a favor, just so that the board can see this. So the fire expenses that we incur, did you place those in the equipment repair and in professional services, or just in the equipment repair?
It's in repairs.
Where we're over the 121,258.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, just so that's where that
so
line amount is sitting.
Repairs and maintenance, it's the 58,279 and the 62,980 for fire code.
Okay.
So
sorry, press on.
So I've done just a couple of charts that try to explain visually. So there's PowerPoint charts. The first is I would look at the special ed chart first. So this just graphically shows you that the items that were over budget on. So the tuition were $430,000 over what we had projected. The transportation is another $224,000 over what was projected. And then we're taking a $77,000 haircut on the rate reimbursement for excess cost. And those are offset by the additional excess cost on the higher costs overall, in the choice reimbursement. And we're running better. We've got fewer students in the outplaced in transition programs. So we've got some pickup there. And then if you look at the overall statement, this just shows you that it's really health insurance and the student transportation are what are benefiting us this year, with the offsets from the higher costs from special education that essentially net us to that we expect to be within budget for the full year.
Hey, Eric.
Brian?
Yep, go ahead, Brian.
Are these, to the extent that these higher, what? To the extent that these higher costs are run ratable, do we have enough money in next year's budget to cover the run rate?
So we have budgeted for the students we have now. So either students that we have outplaced currently or we expect to be outplaced next year. We've not budgeted anything above and beyond that. Our traditional approach is that we only budget for what we know.
So the impact of these higher costs is already in your budget that you presented for 25.
It is.
Okay, thanks.
But I mean, my concern is, and I've expressed this to the board, is that the budget next year is much leaner than the FY24 budget. So I don't believe next year we would be able to absorb a $300,000 surprise in special ed tuition based on the budget we have today. The budget that the board is currently deliberating over.
Okay, great. Do any board members have questions?
Just real quick, we underestimated our expenses. What exactly happened along the way that wound up costing so much more? Did we have an influx of students with greater needs than we thought? Transfers into districts? I mean, these are meaningful size numbers.
I might ask Diana to comment on that.
Diana, can you come up for the Zoom people?
So for this year's budget, the difference in where we are now and for this year. Yeah, it really depends on student needs that change throughout the year that we might not anticipate at the beginning of the year. So as Eric said, when we plan for our budget, we plan for what we know. So for next year, we budget for the students that we know. But we never know if a student's going to move into district or a student's needs may change, and then we have to make that decision. So it's hard to plan for that. Does that make sense?
So what is it that happened this year that we wound up under budgeted by $700,000? You know what I mean? This time last year, when we sat down doing a budget, we sort of projected what our needs were going to be going into the year. And now we're realizing that we're this far behind. I'm trying to get a sense of, well, what were those changes over the course of the year?
Under 700,000? Yeah.
Gross.
Okay.
That's before we get
Before we
reimbursed
get
by
excess cost?
choice or excess cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just that students' needs change throughout the year, over the summer. So it's hard to predict what that cost is going to look like. Whether their placement changes, whether a student might require a placement, whether a student moves into district.
Okay. I just feel like we need to be looking at this with an eye towards learning from it and knowing, trying to kind of predict and anticipate what those changes are going to be. We can't change the fact that we might have 4 kids moved into district and they're, for lack of a better term, high cost individuals,
Yeah.
But it just made me wonder, well, what was it about this year that all happened all at once? It seemed like
I can speak a little bit more freely without Dr. Kelly having to be, we did see some outplacements that cost wise were pretty significant.
Yeah.
And doesn't take many of that to actually swing a pretty large sum of money within the budget. Then, of course, you do get some case management that comes into the district, of which then you're putting together some elements of programming within the district to try to accommodate that student. So it doesn't take an awful lot, but as we've talked through the years, the special education can unfortunately have a pretty significant impact pretty quickly that you can't really predict for it, even though we do our best to be able to do it. Right now, the model that we've operated off of, and I'm pretty confident this is where it is in every school district, is you base on what you know. And then unfortunately, it doesn't leave you much flexibility when it comes time if things really shift in the upcoming school year. The great thing is that I believe there's been good transparency around that this does happen. As you read the media, as you read the newspaper articles at the end of a school year, you often see school districts that are going back to their towns saying that they're $750,000 or $1 million or $2 million over special education costs. Usually it's within that line that they find that. And this also goes back to the conversations that we had very early on with the Board of Selectmen, where we asked to set up that reserve fund. We had really put in that request for that 2% carryover for these purposes. And by and large, special education, because it is so volatile, things can change with it so quickly. So we will continue to provide you the information that we can provide you. We can have further dig into some of these numbers without sharing information about students and services that they're getting as we go further to the deliberation processes over the next month and a half.
Hey, Tim, isn't there a cap on the amount that the district is responsible to pay for the tuition for an outplaced student?
Yeah. So the cap that you're referring to is actually what's called the excess costs amount, which means that we pay up to, do you want to explain?
Yeah,
the excess
so
cost, Dr. Shaw?
excess cost is calculated. We take 4.5 times the per pupil expenditure. Then you take that number and that's subtracted from the total cost of an outplacement. So for example, if we have a student whose costs are $150,000, we would subtract 4.5 times our per pupil expenditure, which is about 80,000.
That's about it's 18,000
right.
per pupil.
Right.
And then you multiply it times 4.5, and that's where you get
Correct.
yourself. Yeah.
So it's about 80-something thousand. So that 150,000 subtract 80-something thousand leaves us with 70,000. We would get 70.5 this year, 70.5% of that 70,000 reimbursed to us.
So you're on the hook for 25% of the amount over 4.5 times the average.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like there had to be a bunch of kids that just ended up costing a lot more money versus.
Yes.
Because otherwise that excess cost orange bar would have a much bigger number on it.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, Diana and her team have done a great job in bringing the number of outplacements down. It's just, we've got some cases that are extremely expensive.
Right. An outplacement can range from 100,000 up to 400,000, even sometimes more, rarely, but it's really hard to determine what the cost is going to be, but we certainly have to make sure the program is appropriate for a child when we're recommending it.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from board members?
I just had a real quick question, Mr. Remington. I'm hoping you have a quick answer. Just curious what's in the other column, if you had a few examples of what that consists of.
Which one are you on?
So the FY 23-24 financial the FY 23-24 financial projection.
The bridge.
I can get you a list. If you go through the, it's everything, essentially, it's not on the, it's not listed separately.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the detail has 3 pages of information, so there was nothing of significance. It just all adds up to 210,000.
Thank you.
Well,
Okay, any other questions in the room? On Zoom? Okay. Great. Thank you, Mr. Remington. We can press on now to our next action item, which is going to be the fiscal year 24 budget transfer for the athletic trainer salary. Who wants to give the background on that?
I will.
Okay.
Okay, so you may recall that in the previously, we had an outside service that provided our athletic trainers. And we had budgeted $40,600 in the FY24 budget for that service. That contract was terminated, and we ended up hiring an athletic trainer that is now a paid employee. So we're requesting a transfer to move the $40,600 out of the supplies budget, which is where it was budgeted, into a salary line item to cover the salary for the trainer for the year. And it also will make sure that we don't overspend those supply items by taking the funds out of there. So the cost of the trainer was allocated to 25 different sports, and it was put in the supply line item for each of those 25 sports. So we're just asking to take it out of the supply budget and move it to the salary line item.
Equal dollars.
Excuse me?
Equal dollars, meaning we were paying a service 40 grand a year with the same dollar amount.
Essentially, yes.
Spread over 25.
Yeah, we based the salary on that $40,600 figure.
Okay, I'm going to make the motion to approve the fiscal year 24 budget transfer for the athletic trainer salary. Can I get a second for that?
I'll second that.
We'll give it to Glenn. Nice to hear from you. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Does anyone have any discussion regarding this? Any other further questions? Okay, I don't hear any, so I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
We got everyone. Let's make that unanimous acceptance. And we can move on. Our next action item is the acceptance of a donation from Home Depot.
So I have great
Yep.
news. Thank you, Chair Satan. So Director of Technology Osliger has been working with our STEM department and has been able to acquire an $8,000 donation from Home Depot to support the Home Builders Institute programming that we have at the middle school. So in order for us to be able to accept this money because of the sizable nature, it has to be approved by the Board of Education.
Okay.
That's an inside copy, so I don't know if I might have your original.
Oh, could be.
Oh, yes, it's on that. Oh. And I have full color. We have a color copy for your signature.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion here to approve the donation of $8,000 from Home Depot.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we'll give the second to Sam. Any further discussion on that?
Thank you to Home Depot
That is worthy of discussion.
and Becky.
Thank you. Yes, to both of those. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That's unanimous. We'll move on. Action item, discussion and possible approval of the 24-25 district school calendar. This is going to be teed up by Assistant Superintendent Zawawi.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. In your board packet, we have our proposal for the 24-25 calendar. Before I begin, I do want to thank the committee for working very hard this year. We met over 3 different Thursdays in the month of January. And I do want a big round of thank yous. There were 24 people that signed up to be on the committee. I sent out a survey to all parents in town, all teachers, and I had 3 lovely board members that joined us. So I appreciate Brian, Melissa Finnegan, and Glenn for joining us. We had 2 administrators. Chris Price is here, and I want a big round of thank you because she spent a lot of time putting this together, as well as we had 7 teachers, 1 para, 2 admins, and 8 parents that joined us. I do have the attendance that you can look at later to see who was able to come. With the 24 members, there were actually 19 that showed up religiously and participated in the conversation. So with that, I will take you through the calendar, explain the highlights, and be able to answer any questions that you have. All right, so just for new board members, when you're taking a look at this, it goes top to bottom for each column, okay? So in August, we have 2 student days that's referenced in the top bar of the month of August. You have on the 23rd, new teacher orientation. On the 26th, we are proposing a no school professional development day. On the 27th, we're proposing a no school professional development day. The 28th would be a teacher work day. By contract, they must have a work day before the student day, which puts us at the 29th being the student's first day. Going down, no school on the 2nd of September due to Labor Day. We're proposing on the 20th an early dismissal for a professional development day. That's a Friday. And no school for professional development day on the 23rd of September. Going down again, October, 21 student days. On October 14th, no school, Columbus Day. On the 15th, no school, Professional Development Day. On the 17th, Suffield Middle School and Suffield High School will have evening conferences, but it is a full day for students, no change for them. On the 22nd, all schools would have an early dismissal day. Suffield Middle School and Suffield High School would engage in afternoon and evening conferences, while Spalding and McAllister schools would engage in professional development. So in essence, everybody goes home, but the secondary and the elementary schools are engaging in different things. On the 24th, Suffield Middle School and Suffield High School would have early dismissal with afternoon conferences. Month of November, 18 student days. No school on the 5th, it's election day, PD day. On the 7th, Spalding McAllister would have evening conferences. Again, it's a full day for students. On the 12th, this is the opposite scenario from the month before. All schools would have an early dismissal. Spalding and McAllister will have their afternoon and evening conferences, while the middle school and the high school would engage in professional development. On the 14th, Spalding and McAllister early dismissal, afternoon conferences. The 27th, all schools early dismissal, Thanksgiving break, everyone's just going home for that holiday. And the 28th through the 29th is Thanksgiving break. Month of December, 15 student days. On December 10th, we're recommending an early dismissal for a professional development day. The 23rd through the 31st would be our winter break. January 1st, no school New Year's Day. We're recommending January 17th be an early dismissal for professional development day. No school Martin Luther King Day on January 20th. Up to the top right-hand side, February 17 student days. On the 17th would be no school President's Day. The 18th would be no school winter break. And the 19th would be no school for the students, but the teachers would come back for a professional development day. March, there'll be 21 student days. On the 4th, all schools will have an early dismissal for afternoon and evening conferences. The 6th, all schools, afternoon and evening conferences. So that's an early dismissal. On the 18th would be an early dismissal for professional development day. April 14th through the 17th would be our spring break. We did survey several area towns, and that is consistent with what the other area towns are doing. On the 18th, no school Good Friday. May, 21 student days, no school for Memorial Day. And June, we're anticipating the tentative last day of school would be the 11th. And then we put June 19th is a federal holiday for Juneteenth. Graduation could be set at the 180th day. We put down there as a suggestion would be the 14th. So let me go through a couple of the bigger changes. First biggest change that you're going to notice, we typically have had 182 student days. The calendar committee is recommending 180 student days. State law says you need to have 180. We've always had more. The idea is that we would convert 2 of those student days to become professional development days. Some of the other big changes that you'll notice from last year's calendar to this year's calendar would be where we put the half day or early release professional development. Last year, we had a lengthy conversation over having them on Friday. We went back and forth as a calendar committee. What is best for instructional time? What is best for families? And in the end, we decided to do 5 early release, which is consistent with what we have this year. We have 5 this year. We're proposing 5 next year. For next year, it would be 3 Tuesdays and 2 Fridays is the makeup of where the calendar committee decided. The benefit for us as a school system, having it on Tuesday, is in professional development, we gain an hour because by contract, the teachers stay an hour later on Tuesday. So typically, if we had it on Friday, that's a 3-hour professional development day. If we move them to Tuesday, it's a 4-hour professional development day. We are looking at several new programs coming into district, whether it be the math at the elementary, the reading at the elementary, one or the other or both. No matter how that all shakes out, there's going to be significant program changing coming next year. Our teachers really do need the professional development time. Are there any questions at this point? If I can volley the questions now. I mean, those are
I
the
have an
biggest
easy
changes.
ones. The ones that you're mirroring with the conferences?
Yes.
Okay, are they counted in the 5? Okay, so it
Great
counts
question.
as for the elementary schools, get it one day, but together that makes one early release day.
That's correct. Great question, Maureen. We went from 15 total hours, 5 days this year, to what we're recommending as 18 total hours, but still 5 days. So when you look at October and November, either somebody's in parent-teacher conferences and somebody's in professional development, and then it's vice versa the following month, but it's still 5.
And that counts as one of the Tuesdays that you want to pull from Friday to
Correct.
the Tuesdays. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have some questions. And thank you for your work into the calendar, and certainly thank you to everyone who served on the calendar committee. Greatly appreciate the work. I'm just wondering to what degree, when we're making up the calendar committee, we take into consideration diverse viewpoints and backgrounds and perspectives. And I'm also just seeing, as I look at this, a couple of observations where I think we as a district could be more inclusive. And I do think there are changes that the community would be receptive to. I'm wondering, and I know that there are at least some districts in New York State that do this. I'm still looking into other districts in Connecticut, but specifically related to Columbus Day. I'm wondering if we could add Indigenous Peoples' Day, not replace. But to me, I do believe it's important that we honor all of history, just not part of it. And like I said, there are districts, there's of course a huge debate around that. I don't really want to get into that, but I thought that that was something that perhaps we could have some discussions around. And then I'm also wondering if there's ever been any consideration to honoring one of the Jewish high holidays. I know that even in Granby, every year they do give one day off and then add one on to the end of the calendar year. So that would be Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. And I just note that in particular as our spring break is often coupled with Easter and Good Friday. So the thought just crossed my mind. So hopefully at some point, whether it be this year or in the future, we could have those discussions here. I do think the community would be receptive to those things.
Deborah, I can tell you in discussions, we did have a resource packet that everybody received a folder with all of the Jewish holidays and some other holidays, so that there was opportunity to bring that up at the table. That did not come up as a point of conversation. Indigenous people did have a conversation about it. The calendar committee did not feel as though at this time to bring it forward for our proposal to you, but I'm just sharing with you the conversations.
And just if I can hear that right, was it that you're seeing in other ones where it's a combination of both? It's got the Columbus Day and it's got.
Correct. Instead of replacing, which I get is fairly controversial in this day and age still, but just having both of them. There are some districts in New York State that do that. I just thought that was perhaps an idea to be more inclusive and to honor, as I said, all of history.
So if I can respond to that for a moment, Deborah, to Michelle's credit, and I'll start by saying that you conducted great meetings. I feel like everybody was heard and had a voice and they were organized and really constructive meetings. So thank you to everybody who participated. And Michelle, again, to her credit, did present us with a packet of information, kind of acknowledging all variety of holidays that different districts, do acknowledge, including the Jewish high holidays. And it didn't have, frankly, further discussion beyond that. We did discuss the idea of, at my suggestion, replacement of Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples' Day. And Michelle, I hope you don't mind my sharing, expressed some support for that idea. The general consensus that I got from the subcommittee was, and this is not me expressing my own opinions, just my observation of what I felt I heard others saying, was that there really wasn't an interest in replacing one with the other, but that there may be a willingness to adding on Indigenous Peoples' Day as acknowledgement on the calendar. Now, it'll be a matter of procedure this evening, but it is my intent at some point in our conversation to make the motion that Suffield's district and our calendar this year acknowledge October the 14th as Indigenous Peoples' Day. I'll purposely keep hands off of the idea of it being a replacement and instead make my motion that it be an acknowledgement of it being Indigenous People Day on that date. So you let me know when it's time to make a motion.
Well, let's see if there's any questions. So I know, being on the calendar committee, more. If there's anyone who, even if you're on the calendar committee, that has any additional questions for Michelle or any other member of the calendar committee, please ask them. I don't see any questions here, and I think both of our Zoomers were on the calendar committee. Yep.
Yeah, can I just make one observation real quick since I was on the committee? Not a huge fan of going down to 180 days from 182, but one of the things that was discussed is just, I think the amount of material that the teachers have to review this year is over close to 60 hours, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give others on the board perspective, I think the alternative to not going down to 180 days was potentially pulling teachers out of class to do some of this professional development, which then leads to substitutes, which may not be the most effective way for kids to learn in a consistent manner. So I just wanted to give other board members that perspective. I would assume next year we go back to 182. Unless there's a good reason not to.
Thanks, Glenn.
Glenn, thank you. I can share a little bit more on my fact sheet here. Didn't know how in-depth everybody needed at this moment, but what I shared with the calendar committee were some, I guess what we would say, unfunded mandates. There are certain things that we have to do as a school system every year. And every year, those hours start to add up more and more. To be quite frank, I was a little surprised when I started to compile the list. There are some that's every 3 years, and then there's others that's yearly training, but all that time does start to add up. As an example, state has asked us to do human trafficking, which we're doing on February 21st, which is a 2.5 to 3 hour training. Another one that's more district, which is safety and security, where we are all together learning the best practices to keep our kids safe. So there's a lot of those sort of trainings that are important, don't get us wrong, but they take away from the time that has been allotted to us for the teaching and learning types of professional development. Glenn is correct. It was shared at our committee. We pay our substitute teachers $125 a day. And so when we start to pull our teachers out of the classroom, that starts to go up. So we know, whether it's the reading program or the math program, that we are anticipating up to 10 days of professional development needed just to get everybody up and running on these new programs. So by the time you do the math calculations, that'll be about $26,000 that we're going to need for substitute teachers. And to Glenn's point, which was discussed, we value our substitute teachers, don't get us wrong, but we also know consistency with your classroom teacher is really what's important, as opposed to the in and out for professional development. So that's what Glenn is alluding to. It was a long conversation in our meeting. The other part that was, actually I'll hold off in case it comes up. So
Was there any discussion in the calendar committee for giving the elementary schools more days period, full stop? That PD does not have to be equal for both levels of school.
That did not come up in our conversations.
So could you speak off the cuff about the viability of that?
Off the cuff, anything's possible. I would say that across the board, professional development is needed. Even if there are some folks that don't realize that there's improvements to be made. Speaking honestly, most of our new programs coming in would be at the elementary schools. But
okay.
Maureen, this is Melissa.
Yep.
Sorry, Michelle, just to that point, I know we didn't really talk about it in depth. There was a brief moment where we were just sort of thinking, because I know there are some districts that are just doing the elementary because of programming and things of that nature. And I think the only concern that came up, at least for me, was if you had older kids that were caring for younger ones, it would cause a bit of that would be a little bit tricky because the older kids would still be in school while the younger ones were home. But obviously, if we were to be able to partner with Parks and Rec or different, organizations to assist with that, it may not be as big of a burden on families. But I know that was one thing, and we only spoke of it really briefly because at this time it just wasn't something that we were going to entertain. Because and obviously it can be up for more discussion, but it does get pretty cumbersome in there when you're trying to kind of touch on all the different points. So just to add that to you.
And does anyone have any other questions?
More comment than question.
Comment
really,
is
but
fine,
yeah,
yeah.
but much like Glenn commented that he had his reservations about the idea of going from 182 instructional days down to 180. I think we have to give careful consideration to that. I am of the opinion that students learn from good teachers, and the better prepared they are, the more PD they have, the better the education they're going to get. I'm also of the opinion that students learn while they're in the classroom, present in front of their teachers. And so you have this endless balance that it's hard to strike. The teachers and administration made a compelling point about things that we, of course, know in part about the new programming coming down the pike. And so this would seem to me that an extra day or two would likely be a unique need for this year. And like Glenn said, maybe we go back to the 182 days in the future. And that's even if there's consensus on the board to go down to 180 this year. You know what I mean? And it bears comment too that to go down to 180 days limits a little bit of our flexibility too. If we come to the end of a year where in years past, if we scheduled for 182 days of student time and then the end of the year we had the will or the need to waive a day for students, it gave us a little bit of flexibility. We'll be giving away that flexibility a little bit. Just little added pieces of consideration.
Any other feedback or questions?
Michelle, can I just ask, I noticed when I was looking at it, now that I just was reading that little bottom section there, where it says school closing days added up to June 13 before consideration. I'm curious as to why we're cutting it off so early. I don't remember ever talking about that. I would almost think that you could go longer into June. I'm just curious why the 13th was the cutoff.
I mirrored it completely off of this year's calendar, and this year's calendar was mirrored off of last year. So I just tried to always stay with the pattern
In
of
the
what-
time, okay, because I have been looking at a lot of other district ones just to try to see our consistency, and a lot of them are almost even going through to the end of the month. Not that I would want us to do that, but I feel like maybe that we may have to kind of think about that a little bit, that we still have some room within that week after if we were needed to extend the time.
Yeah, that's true, Melissa, right? The graduation day wouldn't have to change, but we could go into the following week.
Yeah, sorry. I apologize, Michelle. I would have told you that when I had done the review. I just noticed it when I was looking just now.
Yeah, that paragraph, we just really copied whatever was on this one and matched up. If it was day here, we just picked the same day.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess we just have to make sure
No
before we kind of
creativity
publish
there.
this. Yeah. Thanks.
So I don't like the idea about going down to 180 days, even though I do value the professional development that it would make available. I like some flexibility. I do see the unique needs from this year because of the elementary programs, and I would like to explore the option of giving the elementary schools additional PD, even if it doesn't. Now I get Melissa brought up a reservation, which is that we have older students sometimes that do take care of younger students. I think that that is likely the case with some, but few of our students, that they would not be able to. So I wouldn't necessarily not look to that because of that reason. But I also am not, I have some questions that I would kind of like to toss around to the community. And I know last year we did receive the calendar, the pitch from the calendar committee, not the pitch, but the proposed schedule. And then we waited a month before we voted on that. Now, I'm not sure if you're at a place where you need to know the vacation week or
I have not received any inquiry from any families just yet, but I don't think that's a bad thing if you were to actually move forward on that, because that's really what most families are looking for, in my personal opinion.
Right. So we can certainly, someone can make a motion and we can press it today. I would be supportive of the idea of taking it up either at our next meeting or the following meeting. We're early February here. And so we're talking about these dates all for next year, right? Next year graduation. So that would be my preference, but again, we can press on.
Maureen, can I ask one more question? Do we have any idea or any analysis of districts, how many districts around the state do the 180-day calendar?
Deb, I did look at a lot of them, because we had a whole list of ones that we were looking at for April break and stuff. And I would say a majority of them, it was anywhere between 180 and 182. And I never saw anything greater than 182. And a lot of them, their contractual for teachers is less, like a lot of their contracts were 185, 186 and 187, which our teachers go 188. So there was, we definitely had some, a little bit of discrepancies, but they all were in that range.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, just for the sake of like Suffield's contract, the teachers get 2 work days, so we can't count those as professional development days. So when you're looking at like students, the teachers are paid 188 days. We're recommending students for next year come in 180 days. This year, we have 41 hours that we can use to our disposal for professional development. The proposed calendar has 57 hours to use for professional development. So that's what we're proposing, a little bit extra. And I do recognize that it would be the 2 full days, which is why we tried to put them in the summer. So the families could have a longer summer vacation. And we felt, especially the principals, supporting those teachers with the new programs, making sure they really understood what they were doing before go time.
And Maureen, to link a couple comments together where Deborah was asking what other districts are doing, you were talking about the idea of vacations. We can at least say that the spring break, April 14th, that looks really pretty consistent across a lot of our neighboring towns. There's a few that are draft versions of their schedule as of greater than a month ago for the week of the 21st, but as far as spring break coordinating with most of the other districts around us, we look pretty good on that week.
Okay. I have no concerns with taking that week. I don't know.
Maureen, I'm sorry, just one more thing. So I would think that, like, obviously deliberating for this time, I don't think is a problem. I think it'd be good to look at, if the consensus of the board came down to maybe we're not necessarily comfortable with the 182 or the 180. There are other districts, South Windsor is one of them, that is doing every Wednesday, they're doing elementary PD. And if we were to entertain something of that nature, obviously we have other districts that we could ask what they're, how they're accommodating childcare, things of that nature, because obviously they're doing that. I think they're currently doing it now and they're doing it going forward next year. So if we feel that it's more important for elementary at this time because of programming, I think that it seems like that would be, something we could discuss before a vote.
Okay. And then Michelle. And just this question. So we have 5 early release Fridays. We want one to match up with those conferences, right? And then the other one, is that the March 18th one? If I'm looking at that.
Wait, I'll go to my side-by-side comparison chart for easy access.
So that's a Tuesday.
Yeah, I think March 18th was the
yeah.
only other Tuesday. The others were, we continued on a Friday.
So I have a preference. Yeah. Oh, 3 Tuesdays.
3 Tuesdays, 2 Fridays.
2 Fridays.
Part of the conversation at our committee was, this was probably the longest part of our conversation, we wanted to not burden our families in town. And the thought was, if we have it on Friday, they can start their long weekends and whatnot. And the conversation, and of course, on the instructional side, it was, we wanted to have like really solid professional development that was not interrupted. We used the example of in the calendar committee, it was 1 hour and how fast 1 hour goes. But so those are some of the conversations. And then in that conversation, it came up with, I wonder what's the attendance like? It was either a principal or a teacher brought up, we notice when we have Friday PDs, early releases, that students don't come in the morning. So we've been losing them for that morning. So just today I ran some numbers, and of course I didn't have a lot of data, so take it for what it's worth, because our early release professional development days, Fridays for this year, haven't really happened yet. So I can tell you at the end of the year, but what I can tell you is on September 29th of this year, on the week that we had a Friday PD early release, Monday through Thursday, average attendance, we were at 4.71% of our students were absent. On Friday of PD, 7.4% of our students were absent. So the data is a little bit different now, because then I just picked the October date for this year, where Suffield High School and Suffield Middle School were released for parent-teacher conferences. Our average Monday through Thursday attendance absenteeism was 3.8. When it was on the Friday, it was 4.65. So our students didn't come presumably at the high school level. But what's interesting is on the January 12th date, which was a Friday, 5.64% of our students were absent, except on the early dismissal. Only 4.25% of our students were absent. And I thought, why? What happened there? Midterm exams were right after Martin Luther King. So I think the kids came to get that extra push first they're studying. So for what it's worth, that's the data we got on a Tuesday or a Friday with student attendance.
Okay. They sound like small margins of difference to me. So, but okay, so I'm gonna at least make one motion, that is to accept the week of April 14th through the 18th for the spring break. So that's 2025 spring break. So we can at least get that in the hands of people who are going to be making flight reservations. Is there a second for that?
I could second that. That's the only one you're gonna.
That's the only one I'm gonna do
For
right
now,
now,
okay.
so-
Brian Fry, second that motion.
Okay. Is there any? Yeah, go ahead,
You're gonna
Melissa.
say discussion. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Would it be possible to, because I know that there's different programming happening in the elementary schools around the first day of school, could we agree on the first day of school, or are you concerned in regards to those PD days?
Are you talking to Michelle?
No,
Or-
I'm asking if we want to add that to the motion to approve the April break, but also to approve the first day of school, since there are different, kindergarten nights, things of that nature that need to occur around that time that need to start getting prepared.
Is one of the days between the 182 and the 180 before the school starts? So that's why I would not want to do that right now, right? Well, there's one that was always, I think, right? Yeah. So I would rather hold on that, Melissa, but if you want to put it forth, we can.
Yeah, so I think that there was always, let's see, 26, 27, there was always the So we did add one day in there. I'm not sure if regardless of us going from 182 to 180, if the decision would be to still have that be one of the four. What are your thoughts on that, Michelle?
I would agree, yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Michelle, so you said that I'm sorry, I couldn't hear those guys, but, so that the four would be, two of those would be then, and then two disperse through the rest of the year?
Yeah, I'm pulling up Chris because it's.
Yes, Chris was definitely our calendar resident
That was the
expert.
biggest concern.
No, I think that from a professional development standpoint, we need that day at the start of the year. So that would be one of those core four that we've always had, just moving it to there. The last couple of years when we've only had that one day plus half of the convocation day, we've really struggled to get everything rolled out that needs to happen before school.
So to answer the question, if you were to not support the 180 and go to 181 or 182, we're still going to be putting a professional development at the beginning of the year. Would be our recommendation.
In addition to what we always had last year, additional.
Right, we always had four.
Mhm.
We didn't put it at the beginning. We would recommend that we put it at the beginning. Teachers ready to go.
And that is one thing, Maureen, when I was looking at the other districts, a lot of their full PD days didn't even fall throughout the year. They fell usually prior to the first day of school, in several of the districts. So that was kind of a normal, stacking of PDs.
So just so that I'm understanding this entirely, if we stayed at 182, just for conversation's sake, you guys feel strongly that you would still want the calendar to start off looking exactly as it is here?
Yes, and as
Where-
a committee,
where-
when we were working through, we put those that was the first decision we made, was to put the 2 professional development days at the start in addition to the teacher workday before we ever opened the discussion regarding dropping to 180 from the 182.
Then in my mind, that could be safe to schedule as the first day.
I don't have strong feelings. I mean, I have the anticipation that even if we don't vote on a final schedule tonight, calendar tonight, that it will be done in the next month. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue, but I don't foresee how it won't be this, and we can change it even if we put it, we are in charge of the calendar. We have a motion and a second on the table, so I'll take a vote for that unless there's any discussion. Now, this is the motion just regarding the placement of the April break. Is there any discussion on that point? I'm going to call for a vote on that. All those in favor of that week, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, that one passes unanimously.
Can I make another motion then?
Yeah. Yes. you
Can I make a motion to set August 29th as the first day of school for students?
I'll second.
Okay, so that's Melissa and Glenn. Any discussion on that? I don't have any concerns with setting that. Like I said, we can change it if we need to, and it will at least signal.
Could I just interrupt? If
Yeah.
you choose to do that,
Yeah.
Just know that the 28th is automatically going to be a teacher.
Teacher workday.
So you can couple it together if you're going with one. Because by contract, you have to have the workday.
Are you just mentioning this because it's
Just
the language
you could-
difference?
Yeah. you
Oh,
could
okay.
couple it, as everybody knows that this is going to happen. So
What-
you don't hear from the teachers.
Okay.
Any issue.
So we have.
I
No,
can
no.
amend my motion then to have the 28th be a teacher workday and the 29th be the first day of school for students.
Why is it valuable for us to label that right now?
I think it's just contractual, Maureen. I don't know if I don't know if we would necessarily need it, but that's the day they have to be as a work day that has to be open for them.
I get it.
I think what you're really trying to do
We're
is we are
signaling-
trying to say teachers start, except for new teachers, all faculty would start on the 26th and the students would start on the 29th. That's really what that proposal would be, I would think.
So I get it. I'm just missing that. I don't understand why we can entertain another motion to set this. The calendar is going to be considered next month and printed, but you think it's going to be helpful to have those days specified likely now?
It was just a point of they go hand in hand. If you're going with one, you have to do the other one anyways. Whether or not you're just trying to move some of these decision makings along. Whenever you decide your first day, you know when your teacher first day is.
Okay, so Melissa, your amended motion is for the 29th and then the 28th to be the teacher workday. Glenn, are you seconding that as amended?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that? Okay. Okay. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that one passes unanimously.
Is there any value in doing the same thing for the winter break? Does anybody think?
I feel like those, I mean, like, I know, like Maureen said, I was just more concerned because I know that there are people that are getting ready for, you know, like you said, with breaks and things, but I don't, it's no different than it was this year. So I don't know if there's as much of a concern, but listen, I don't know if we can pare away as many things as we can, unless you feel like next month we're going to be able to get through it all.
I know.
I don't think this year we had quite as many days off in a row. This is going to be like a whopper of a winter break.
That's
and
the
just-
exact same as this year.
It's the same where we have.
Oh, sorry, for the Christmas break? Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Oh, this is really long. Yeah, it's 12 days.
Right.
That's why we didn't do the half day prior to, because there's 12 full days. You're right. Sorry about that. I was thinking of the February winter break, not the other one.
I mean, the same idea of giving families heads up about spring break to know what their December break is. Well, I'll just see if there's any interest and make a motion. I move that for the 2024-25 Suffield Public School District calendar, that we approve winter break, no school between Monday, December 23rd and January 1st, resuming classes on January the 2nd.
Okay, a motion is on the table. Do we have a second?
I'm gonna go ahead and second that.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously.
This is Brian. I think there's some typos on your calendar in January.
Okay, what do you see that might be a question mark?
This is one I'm looking at. There's a red slash on the 8th, which I think belongs on the 1st, where the gray box is. There's also a red slash on the 27th, which I think belongs on the 20th, because that's actually Martin Luther King Day. And then there's a blue circle around the 24th, which I think belongs on the 17th, because that's noted as early dismissal.
Okay, Brian, thanks. I'm gonna let Michelle answer this.
Yeah, it's not
You
on
wanna
the
see
printed
it?
document.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Totally is on my printed
Oh, is it?
document.
That's on my printed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it is on December 26th, is that really no school office open day?
No. Yeah, I had gone over some of those changes with Michelle, but I know Michelle has been trying to tweak it.
I just did my audit.
Thank you, Brian.
Good job on that red line. There you go.
Okay, so
Oh, right
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like prior to the vote, we'll just make sure we tweak some of these, because I did look it over and gave some updates, but I know Michelle's been doing her best to try to fill out some of those things.
no, but it's good feedback, Brian. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Yeah, I think there were a couple different formats going through, but we'll clean it up.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have an objection if we move on at this point with those three motions passed? Okay, no objections. So at least that gets us started and we can reapproach next month. All right.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, thanks to all, actually. Fiscal year 25 budget discussion. Okay, so this last piece of the pie on what we're receiving is for the agri-science program within Suffield High School.
Thank you, Chair Satan. So our program coordinator, Dr. LaFlamme, as well as our high school administrative team, are going to go over the agri-science budget and answer any questions that board members have. Last week, we did submit to board members the spreadsheets for ag science. So we have those spreadsheets that we can go over, but they're going to review some program highlights while they're getting set up here. We also just did want to share with the board, one of the requests that was made last week from, Laura, you can, Dr. Laflamme, you can sit right here. Yeah, and then if, the admin team wants to come up and be with you. One of the requests that was made at the budget deliberations last week had to do with special education. Could we actually take all the personnel that were spread out into all the school-based budgets, shift it all over to special education so that we could actually see the cost of that? Business manager Remington has worked on that, so we do have that available for board members, and we could possibly go over that. But really, tonight's deliberation was really just to hear agri-science programming and then to answer possibly any questions that you have that have come up on any of the topics. So without further ado.
Well, thank you. I realize how late it is. We have a rule with our consulting committee meetings. After 8 o'clock, we go home. So more power to this group. Well, I really appreciate it.
Great. Well, I really appreciate being able to be here and talk a little bit about the agri-science program. I think it's my new line, agri-science. It's not just a class, it's a program. It's not just an after-school activity, it's a program. And the pictures that you see up here kind of depict that. So you can kind of see that 3-circle requirements where you see the classroom, you see the instruction going on in the lab, you can see a student SAE visit, you can see the FFA component, that's our National Floral CDE team, and then to the left is our Big E competition where they were doing the landscape competition. I just wanted to also bring it to your attention that the Connecticut educational laws and regulations, they actually dictate kind of how our program gets organized. So section 1064 and 1065 give us certain program requirements. So it's not just, so the instruction is dictated by the state and national agriculture standards. FFA is a leadership organization that's required. The SAE is a requirement. That Agriculture Experience Project is required of all students in Connecticut. They actually even tell us how many minutes a week. So we need to have 320 instructional minutes to our agri-science students in their 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. They give us other kinds of program definitions of like 35-to-1 teacher-student ratios and 15-to-1 ratios in the classroom for labs. And so the Suffield budget has worked with those parameters and made decisions based on making sure that we can stay with those regulations. Matter of fact, every 5 years, an ASTE review committee comes and kind of makes sure that we're staying in check with how our program is doing. And I'm really proud of the successes that we've had with our program and the growth that we've had using the state regulations as kind of a cornerstone to that. So program highlights. So obviously that 3-circle program is what I'm all about, and that's what our teachers are about. So that's what our students are receiving. They're receiving incredible instruction in the classroom. We have 5 seasoned teachers that are integrating lots of lab activities. And so I'm proud of that. We had the large animal facility finish its construction this year, as you are aware of. I hope you all make it to the Ag Expo, April 3rd and 4th, where you can see the facility, hopefully in its ribbon cutting ceremony, as we kind of welcome the true use of it this spring. The other thing this year was we did have the food science renovations completed, and that's been able to allow classrooms instruction to happen both in the fall and in the spring. Matter of fact, today we had the Suffield Garden Club host their monthly meeting in our large animal facility. I'm now calling it a large area for flowers building, but I don't know if that'll stick. But the food science area was able to make this, the kids made the soups and the salad and the rolls and all the desserts. So we're really able to use that area. So that's kind of the instructional part. The other part that I think is really important is that SAE and the FFA. And one of the ways if you're familiar with scouting, you hear of Eagle Scout, or you hear of the gold awards. In the FFA, it's these degrees. So there's Green Hand, Chapter, State, and American degree. And last year we had 28 students. We were by far the chapter with the most state degrees overall by a significant amount. So 28 state FFA degrees tells me about kind of a measure of health that our students are engaged in the program, that they're meeting the standards, and therefore they're able to excel on the state level. And this year we had 4 American FFA degrees. Again, this is kind of the Eagle Scout of the ag science. And to have 4 graduates complete shows that the involvement continues even after they graduate. So I really see that as a measure of success in our program. But I also wanted you to kind of take a look at just a small graph. I love data and math and graphs as well, as I know all of you do. And it's really kind of interesting to see when we start looking at the 5-year mark of like where we have grown since 2018. If I look at the first graph up there, the retention of the class of 2023 over 4 years, we had an 81% retention rate. 61% of the class earned their state FFA degree. And so why I say this is a program highlight is because 100% of that class earned their cords at graduation, which means that they did the instruction, they did the hours of SAE, which would be 450 hours of agriculture experience, and they completed over 15 leadership events and community service. And so I think that that's really one of those things where I'm really proud of our program and how that is a measure of our success. And if you look back, this is just kind of fun for me to see, and I wanted you to see it as well. In 2018, we had 105 students in our program. In 2023, we had 165. This year, we will graduate 38, while in 2018, we graduated 26. So that's a 46% increase in our program, which is really incredible. And I think it's really interesting that the retention rate was the exact same. It was 81%, which means that once our students get here, they want to stay in the program. So I consider all of those our program highlights. So I think this is probably where, I'd like to spend the most time, and that is because this has the most budget implications, and really is we want to just keep growing and strengthening the program that we have. And there's really 3 main focuses that I mentioned. And that is, first of all, let me just also back up and just say these recommendations were made at our last ASTE review in 2020, literally right before COVID. We were 4 days before COVID. We finished the review, and they made those 5 recommendations, and our PLCs get together and we kind of focus in on making sure we're going to meet those standards. And so the first goal is to increase the UConn ECE experiences. We are blessed that we have 3 teachers that are certified to teach early college experience classes. We teach Intro to Hort, 2 advanced floral design classes, a behavior and training class, and we just got approved to do a companion animals class. So we'll be realigning that class as well. We are hoping that we can get a marine science class as well as a plant propagation, plant breeding class. Those are 2 other options that we have. So providing students access to earn college experiences in high school, as you know, is a wonderful thing. And we've been able to provide that opportunity for students for quite a few years. And matter of fact, Michelle just gave me the go ahead to work with companion animals once we got Rebecca certified. So that's really exciting. The second goal is to prepare for that 2025 state agriculture science review team. And that's kind of going back to the recommendations. So I see part of it goes into goal number 3 is that we need to be able to continue to utilize the facilities that we do have. The program looks a lot different than it was in 2018. We were just getting access to the large animal facility. Obviously the new storage wasn't there. And we have been able to build our program because we've built that reputation of being able to provide those experiences for students. Now we just have to figure out how do we continue to strengthen the program and use the facilities that we do have. And so again, looking at the recommendations, I think we're building upon, this is a great building year where we can utilize the budget that really doesn't have a significant change in any of the expenses to figure out ways where we can vision to make sure that those recommendations are adhered to as we prepare for the next one.
So Laura, getting these goals you can get to these goals without any change from what is in the budget currently?
So our review will either be in 2025 or 2026. I actually
So you're
shared
just kind of setting the stage here for what will might
exactly
have to consider in future
Yes,
years. Okay.
exactly. Harold Mackin is the state coordinator and
Yeah.
he'll be retiring in November 2025. And so we may want to try to push to have the review done before he retires. I really don't know the schedule and how it will be released to us.
But yeah, because we're trying to make it fit into our budget discussion and I just wanted to make sure it wasn't for now.
Right,
Okay.
right. I believe that the budget that we have presented is going to be able to be foundationally a strong foundation for us to move the program forward. If we're able to utilize the funds that we've been budgeted this year and for next year, I think there's a progressive move forward. And I really think that is what we need to be able to do is continue to grow the program with the resources that we have. Okay. Any questions? I'm happy. I'm cognizant of your time. I'm happy to take questions. I'm not familiar with your budget practices in the past and how much detail you'd like me to go through, but you know me, or if you don't, I can talk about ag science all day long, but I know you all have other things on your agenda as well.
There is one budget thing I know that would impact agri-science, which is the addition of a special ed teacher that's designated for ag sci. Can you just speak to how that would impact your program?
So, I mean, I am conscious that anytime we can support our students more, I think that is a good thing. I'm not that familiar and I would probably pass that question on to someone. I don't know how much it is attached to the agri-science budget or if it's just overall. So I would look for additional reflections on that.
Okay. Yeah, it sits, I think, in the special education department.
Mhm.
So it wouldn't be in your line item, but it
Right.
is designated for your program. So
Right. I think when you have the program rigor of the 150 hours and the leadership activities and the additional classroom instruction, that perhaps having a lead for students that have additional struggles, that will be helpful. I can better prepare something more. I do have it delineated about struggling students and achievement. I mean, I could give you a better answer with that because I do think that, when you look at the curve of student participation in the agri-science program, we really are the natural curve. It really is that 13% of a bell curve. And so we have really strong high performers and students that need additional services in order to be successful. And we have
most in the middle.
I
A
can
little bit
attest
of
that
it.
They're constantly looking at data points in terms of student success. And I think one of the things that would definitely benefit students who are navigating between two very different programs is targeted support to help them even with executive functioning and needs for understanding the demands of a class in an ag science program versus in a regular program. And so having a designated teacher that can work with the PLC and work with teachers to support students that are coming from a wide variety of schools and programming really will benefit our students.
Great. Does anyone have any other questions for any of our administrators?
Can I ask just a quick question, Maureen? It's Melissa.
Yes, of course. Yep, you're good, Melissa.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm just looking at the ECE courses, and I apologize if this came up. My dogs were barking. It was like chaos for about a second.
worries.
But for the ECE program, so it looks like, enrollment obviously is good. Is there been ever any thought on being able to open those types of courses up to other students within the school?
We had one student who's not enrolled in the program, but took the class floral design this fall. So it is a standard practice that if the class has 15 or less, if it has 14 or less students, that Suffield High School students can take it as a class. So it's always been that way. So
is that marketed to them at all? Like, because I mean, just because for me, I had never really heard that, like, as far as through my kids, like through guidance or anything, but is it something that is discussed like with the kids as options, or is it sort of just like if they ask kind of for it?
I don't know exactly how students find out. Sometimes they'll literally just be walking by the hallway and they'll ask, or the school counselor might, it also does, that's a one class experience for that student. And so if there's room, we're happy to provide the opportunity, but unfortunately that doesn't give them the experience of the whole program. And all Suffield middle schoolers do have the presentation given to them, to kind of explain. We do mention the ECE courses, we do mention the benefits of the program. And I do have, matter of fact, I just had a 10th grader join the program at half year. And that has, that's more common than you would think, that if there is a student who didn't understand the program as an 8th grader and wanted to participate in the program as a 9th or 10th grader, I do provide that opportunity to Suffield students. We don't actively recruit to any of our sending towns, but we do provide the opportunity for Suffield students to join the program as 9th graders or 10th graders.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just think like, I definitely, when looking at the numbers, I think if you're looking at that 14 threshold, you're pretty under in a lot of those. And, obviously there's always staffing and things of that nature. And
Actually, so you should be aware that we dual enroll our ECE classes. So ECE classes are not held they are integrated with the academic as well. So like I teach a floral class, I teach the ECE and the academic floral in the same grouping. So that does get confusing sometimes because the entire enrollment of that one class is 15. There's not two separate classes. And that is true.
Okay.
That's
so the
true for
numbers
all
here
of
though,
them.
where it says like 8 for advanced floral and
Right. So
9 for animal behavior, that might be a larger number if there's another class
it
integrated
definitely
in.
is.
Okay.
Yes. So like this fall, I can't see the numbers from here, but I had, at least 4 students who took it as an academic class, not as an ECE class.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Melissa, it's Michelle. Just as far as your question with can Suffield High School students enroll in the agri-science ECE classes, in the program of studies, it does list that after the agri-science students are placed, it is open to all Suffield High School students. High school is having some internal conversations over a certain OSHA course that they may or may not have to take in order to participate. But it is in fact open to all students so that everybody has the opportunity to take these wonderful classes that are offered without necessarily being in the program itself.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
We do have all students who take an ag science class take the OSHA, so that just for a safety lens, because we use the entire facility. So for an example, my floral design class was in the large animal facility most of the afternoon preparing for the Suffield Garden Club. So there's a lot of times where, you know, we cross our areas. We definitely are not staying in one area. So that's why we do that.
Okay, so that's that's something that we do just for our own safety, but it's not like a requirement by like the state or anything like that, or it is.
So it's not a requirement for a class. However, the work-based learning plans that students have to complete for SAE or for their supervised agriculture experience, there is a safety requirement as part of that. And so we are easily able to sign it off when students complete the career safe OSHA training.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
I like the idea that, you know, the regular general population could be attending these classes, and it makes me wonder if it might be underutilized, you know? But I also think that logistically, it must be a challenge, right? Because how do the students know what classes could be available to them if you only know what your enrollment is once course registration is done, you know? So if you have to have a threshold of, well, serving the needs of all the ag students first, and the other students could pick up empty seats, are there historically classes that are low population in the classes where you have 10, 12 kids and, you know, maybe somebody could branch out a little bit and, you know, feel like there's some chance if I could register for a welding class and stand a shot of getting into it, you know?
I think you've tried to keep those initial year that class very low as an opportunity to really matriculate those kids into the program.
But I mean, I think the important part is that it is a program. And so we're trying to grow a student through the four years. And that's part of the reason why we receive state funding, and we receive the funding so that we can utilize the equipment and the lab spaces and all the materials that are true. A student who just enrolls or, you know, takes a class, you know, there would be no state funding. So you do have to be careful when you start to look at the bigger picture of, if you have Suffield high school students just take classes and not enroll in the program, you could see a significant change in the demographics overall of the program. Because it is a lot of requirements, you know, that we hold students to.
So that individual student that you're thinking of that's taking an ag sci class, does that have any cost implication to it?
Yeah, most certainly. I think that we materials. So just because I teach floral design, that's part of where I know the budget works. Not all classes are that way. But there are material handling costs that could increase. When we budget for thinking about the number of students that we have with an 80%. I like to think of a 75 to 80% retention rate. That's my goal, is always 75. Sometimes it dips a little bit lower, but for the most part, you know, if we bring in, you know, 45 students, 48 students, we're graduating like 38 or so, which then you figure you have about 80 junior seniors that you're trying to put into the classes. And so then you're starting to back down with your instructional budgets and that type of thing.
Sounds like a sensible way to plan, but it also sounds like if you take on that extra student, then you got to borrow from some
Oh,
place.
no, I think at this point, we're fine. You know, I think the way class schedules have been enrolled, it hasn't been a factor. But honestly, our class sizes usually are around, you know, anywhere from 10 to 15 with additional juniors and seniors. We have a very large 10th grade class. So how that, I mean, we have a very small 11th grade class that's that will be graduating the year after. So I think that probably next year it'll just be interesting to see what the class enrollment sizes are. It's hard to predict.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay, Laura. Okay, that's it for Laura. Thank you very much for
great,
coming
thank you.
in and sharing with us.
Just on a positive note for Laura and program is that, and by Laura, I have a picture for you here. Is that we've actually had multiple towns that aren't one of our feeder communities that have reached out to us because of the reputation of this program. Most recently, we shared with the Finance Facility Subcommittee meeting, West Hartford has students that they would like to send to our program. We've had Summers that has reached out. So I think it just speaks volumes about the program and what they have done all together as a whole. And I know as we talk about staffing and programming, there's so many initiatives that they would love to see being moved forward within that program. And I think the sky is the limit for the program as you move forward.
We do have some time now. If we have any general questions, I don't think any further questions have gone on the budget spreadsheet to ask. Yes.
I just want to make the board aware, so the students that come to Suffield ag students that come from out of district or from other towns, those towns pay tuition to Suffield. That tuition gets recorded in the town's general fund budget, not in the Board of Ed budget. The state has changed the funding for that program for FY25 so that tuition is capped at 58% of the amount that those towns are currently paying in FY24. So the state has said that they will make us whole. I was on a call with the chairman of the Education Committee of the legislature with all the other business managers from all the other towns with ag side programs. And he said, you know, trust us, we will make you whole. I don't think any of us believed that we would be made whole. But I did just want to make everybody aware that there is that change for FY25. So the amount that they pay in FY24, they will pay no more than 58% of that amount in FY25.
The town.
Is
The sending district.
Towns that aren't.
sending district.
Yeah.
Correct.
Is that, so that's a whole to us then, unless the state money
State
comes
has
through.
said they've,
Is that reflected in the numbers that we have?
so it's not in it's in the towns, it's in the
Got
general
it.
fund budget. That revenue goes to the
Got
general
it.
fund,
Okay,
not to the Board of Ed budget.
got it. Thank you.
Sorry, the 58 goes there and then the making us whole also goes there. So we don't see any of it, but
It's
we're
not exact-
supposedly whole, but it's really not a district thing, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
That was
You're
it.
good. Thanks, Sarah. So we have time for any general budget discussions, and I do have one that just relates to one of our public commenters. Can either Eric or Tim fill us in on the robotics funding, how much we had been contributing in past years for that program? I know it sounds like you've allocated 10,000. Does that include the stipend for the person, and how does the sharing work for Windsor Locks?
I'll pull more information for you because I just don't want to speak and give you misinformation here. But what I will say is that it's a cooperative program. I believe that we have really Windsor Locks has been the one who handles the stipend element of all of it. We did not have anything in the budget prior to this past school year. If you recall, at the end of the year, we've always come to the Board of Education and made requests for additional amounts of money to help them with their trip. But let me, if I could have at least to our next meeting deliberation, because I want to give you accurate figures on that.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Eric or Tim at this time?
Maureen, if I can add to that,
Sorry.
obviously a facility piece of it. I mean, obviously a majority of it is held in Windsor Locks, but it sounds like that might be an important to combine with them in some capacity to maybe look at space and a possible capital, type expenditure?
We'll include it in the analysis.
I got a
Brian,
couple quick
yeah.
things just because you're asking, and it's not completely on me that I didn't put it on the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking for an answer, but in the interest of sharing a couple of things, I do have the questions. One, earlier in the year, we talked about gifted and talented program. We'd originally had some money budgeted for screening incoming students to see if they meet the criteria. That kind of fell by the wayside. I'm interested to know if in this coming budget, we're going to be giving consideration to the idea of a screening tool for gifted and talented students. So that's one. In years past, I remember hearing what portion of our budget increase, this year we're, I think, at roughly 4.19%, but what portion of that are contractual obligations? The pieces that we just have no control over, whatsoever. And my apologies if that's already been broken out and I just missed it and was thinking of something else. And there's additional requirements for our paraprofessionals to have, I think, 3 extra hours of PD. Last year, I think we'd had to kind of come up with the extra money for them. I wonder if there's any planning in this year's budget to have it automatically in the budget because it's a known coming expense to us. So if the extra PD time and expense for our paraprofessionals. And we talked about the family and school liaison. It was a relatively new addition around the time of COVID. I'm interested to know if that has borne fruit, if that program has lived up to its hopes and expectations of improving on attendance and reducing truancy, if it's an investment that we're seeing a return on.
The transition coordinator?
I think we refer to that person as the family school liaison.
Oh, family.
Yeah, the person who's like reaching out to
Yeah.
families
I
and
just
kids
wanted to
aren't
make sure.
showing up.
Yes,
and-
yes,
Yeah, yeah. And then again, a little broken record here, but I kind of feel like we do need to have a deeper dive on the future of open choice. We talk about the grant money for open choice, going away. And I think we have to have some cohesive plan about what significance open choice is going to have to us as a district going forward, if we're going to be okay watching it slip away, or if we need and want for it to be more robust and have kind of be moving in one unified direction.
Yeah. So I think almost all of those questions will require.
I don't expect an answer on any of that.
The budget, I know, if you put it in the spreadsheet, it would be a better way, but he is writing down everything.
It would be really helpful if you could put those into the budget. If you could put those onto there.
If you need the link separate, I'll send it. You have it.
Just so I can, I know you're not looking for big answers tonight, but I'll give you some quick answers. The para PD. So for the hours that's increased, don't forget paras are based on contract, that if it's an early release day, they do stay for those hours. It's only on the days that we're not in session that they don't have to be here, which we would pick up the additional compensation for it. In terms of how we plan for that, this is also something done through collective bargaining.
Okay.
So we're coming up with Teamsters, which covers the pairs in collective bargaining. So I can't really give you the financial implications of that at this time, but please understand that there are times when we have asked pairs to be here during the full day workshops, and we do comp them for that. But that'll be part of our thing. We'll pull out the gifted and talent screenings. There's an element of assessment, but we will get to that when it comes time to do it, and then we can do some of these other deeper dives.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. It is 9:15, so we do want to be mindful of the time. I think we can press on to, are there any other budget questions? That is important, and it's one of the reasons we're here. Okay. So we'll move on to the school resource officer MOU, Superintendent Fantastic.
So I'm going to tee this up by just saying that a lot of work went into this. So we, as of 2015, had not updated our memorandum of understanding with the police department as it relates to school resource officer, as well as the utilization of police forces within the school district. So now is as good a time to do it. And it wasn't just because the legislature moved forward Public Act 23-167, which amended statute 10-233 in section 72 and 73. So what needed to be done based on legislature was that as of July 3rd, 2023, which was as of this past July, the legislature wanted us to update our memorandums of understanding with the police departments to include school resource officers' duties in regards to their procedures for restraining of students, use of firearms, school-based arrest, as well as reporting of investigations and behavioral interventions in challenging behaviors. In addition to that, there was also updates that need to be done to our MOU to include how the school resource officer reports matters relevant to criminals or matters relevant to schools in which crimes have been committed to the police chief, how the police chief then communicates that to the superintendent of schools, and how the superintendent of schools then reports that to the Board of Education. So that's in a nutshell the changes that our legislature required us to move forward with. We retain counsel of Attorney Dory Antonetti from Shipman and Goodwin, who has written these MOUs for multiple school districts across the state of Connecticut. She was referred to us by your board's counsel, Attorney Ritter. In addition to that, we worked because we are in partnership with the police department in doing this memorandum of understanding with Attorney Donnelly, who is the representative counsel for the police department in the town. So beginning in September, we began this process. I apologize to you for that. It has taken as long as it has, but a tremendous amount of work has been done since September to update the memorandum of understanding so that it meets the expectations of statute, but also helps to put us on what hopefully will be a course of success between our relationship in the police department and the schools, and this hopefully will last for the next 10 years. So with that, I'm just going to walk through some of the quick updates that you're going to see within the memorandum. We have redlined every element of the previous memorandum to streamline it, but also to put in language that meets the expectations of the state. I'm going to walk very briefly if you want to go into the memorandum that I'm sharing with you all. This is actually go into the actual memo as it's been updated. It looks like this. Yep. Okay. You see it all? Okay. I'm not going to talk about the introduction. The introduction is the broad overview of what it is. The definitions, there was just some minor definition changes. We removed some of the previous definitions that were in the other MOU. Under the supervision of the SRO, really what changed in here and what we need everybody to recognize is that the officer is under the direction of the Suffield Police Department, its chief and its leadership, not under the school district as it relates to police matters. When it comes to doing SRO school-based matters, they are under the direction or supervision of the administration of the district. So for example, if we wanted to operate a substance abuse DARE program, they would work with the school district as it relates to that. But really anything relevant to crime, it comes under the direction of the police department, whereas anything related to the school itself comes from, it comes under us. The duties and responsibilities have been pretty much consistent between the MOUs, previous and current, so there weren't really any significant changes. One of the things that we did do is that Attorney Antonetti stated that most, and this is interesting to know even as it relates to policies, discipline policies, that councils are giving advice to boards of education to not put things in charts and graphs, because what it ends up doing is really locks you in to an expectation of how you're going to respond to a particular matter. It needs to be a little bit more broad because each matter could be perceived as unique. So in the previous MOU, you will see that there is actually a chart that outlines responsibilities and the involvement of the police department, whereas in ours, we remove, the recommendation was to remove that. Okay. School responsibilities. This just talked about equipment and what we're going to provide within our school responsibilities. Communication was the big piece. And that is that, as you all know, that we as a school district are governed by FERPA, which is the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. However, please understand that FERPA does enable police departments or Department of Children and Families or any type of an agency of which active investigation is going that is under the auspices of the federal or state laws, that they do have access to educational records, okay? Especially if it's a criminal investigation that's happening. Under the graduated response model, we removed a chart from there and put some more narrative to it. And that was at the recommendation of the council, and that really gives you the step-by-step. First thing that we do whenever we're dealing with the matter within the school district, it's handled at the class level. Then if it's not able to be handled at the class level, then it gets to the school administration level. And then from there, we think of there's alternative methods of which we might begin to address problems to provide support to our administration. And then at the very last resort, there is police involvement in matters, and that's when it could be escalated to more of a criminal matter. Okay. We synthesized the next section, which was police activity at schools. The reporting of the investigations, this is the big one. This is the part that everybody had to incorporate it into it. We are required now to have a document trail of matters that happen. So as you can see on the top of page 7, this is what the report that the SRO will have to provide to the police chief. That provides the date, time, and location of an investigation, the name and the badge number of the SRO, all of the demographic information about the person who it's involving, the reason why there was an investigation or why there was some type of intervention, and was there an arrest and were they provided their rights. That has to be documented. That document itself then has to go to the police chief. That is also then going to be transferred into a report that's going to come to the superintendent of schools, which for you all, we still haven't discussed how that's going to get to the Board of Education. But the recommendation of Attorney Antonetti is that once a year that we conduct a meeting where an executive session, we can share these reports to the Board of Education, but that's really left to the board to decide how you wish to receive these information. We do have to be just very careful with it because of the numbers of students receiving these types of infractions and whether or not you might be able to reasonably conclude who it was that was in that matter. Okay. And the next part of our MOU is about video surveillance in the Suffield Public Schools. And one area that you will notice that we did remove in its entirety was the K-9 section. The reason why the K-9 section was removed is because we have policies within the Suffield Public Schools that already have K-9, and I have them written on here. But we have multiple policies in which policy 5145.122, which is search and seizure in the Suffield Public Schools, and 5145.12, which is K-9 searches in the Suffield Public Schools. Attorney Donnelly from the town said, we already have it scripted in policy, so therefore it doesn't need to be in the memorandum of understanding. And so that was redacted from the memorandum of understanding at the request of the town. Our board's council also concurred with that. If it's already in policy, it doesn't need to sit within the MOU. So that's a lot of information that I have provided for you. On a very positive note, the police commission did already review this. They have already formally put their stamp of approval on it. So it was voted on and approved. It has to be voted on and approved by both the police commission as well as the Board of Education. But I think this situates you all in a very good place moving forward. And my request for the board is that you will vote to approve this. And we will then be in compliance with the law, which was enacted July 1st, 2023.
Great. I would like to make a motion to approve the school resource officer memorandum of understanding as presented.
I'll second that motion. So we can have any discussion. Are there questions on anything that Superintendent Van Tassel has presented?
I have a quick question,
Okay.
Melissa. Do we have any policy or anything that kind of fits into our anonymous tip lines that are I think are being utilized probably both at like Suffield Middle School and Suffield High School when people are reporting anonymous situations, if it's bullying or other factors? How do we currently deal with that? Does it go directly to the SRO? Like what is the policy around that? And is that part of this MOU?
So that's not part of this MOU, and currently we do not have a district policy as it relates to that.
So what are we doing today then?
Hi, Melissa, it's Michelle. So the anonymous tip portal opens up and goes immediately to Becky, Director of Technology, as well as both principals or assistant principals at each school, middle school and high school. So they get an announcement of what it is, like the actual tip, and then they do an investigation from there. I know that Becky has been looking at it because we included while it's anonymous, if you leave us your name and information in case we have questions on the investigation, we can get to you. Oftentimes we were getting anonymous tips where there was so little information that there was nothing we could do with it. So we asked them to include their name.
Okay. So is it at some point where if they felt that it was needed to involve the SRO, or, I mean, I don't know if this would be part of this.
Yes.
Things, but.
Yeah, so anytime where it is something that's criminal in nature, we're notifying the police department right away with it. And there have been circumstances where we've received anonymous tips in the evening and we have reached right out to the police department to share what it was that we received so that they could be a part of the investigation with us.
So those types of inquiries then are covered under this agreement?
It's not noted in this memorandum of understanding. It's not there, but certainly in the way in which we would utilize the school resource. We don't speak specifically about the anonymous reporting mechanism, but the way in which we utilize the school resource officer, that is noted in here.
Okay, thank you.
So the biggest change is that they're having these formal reports. So how many of those are we expecting to get in a year?
So it all really depends on how many criminal investigations are done.
It's
So,
only for that level, criminal
yeah,
investigation.
so it's if there is a matter that would warrant the police department getting involved because it could rise to the level of some degree of a crime. Those are the reports that then need to
thought
be
some of the
submitted to the
wording was
police chief.
softer than
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's
So
really
that was
not.
just like a behavioral thing.
Right, so we don't engage with the police department on matters just related to behavioral unless there is the chance that this could be a circumstance that would lead itself into some type of criminal outcome. So for example, if there's an altercation that goes on, that would be something that we would include the police department on, but whether or not they take it up as a matter of a police matter is a totally separate issue. The ones of which they do believe they're going to take up as matter of police, that's where that reporting mechanism comes into play.
Okay.
And it's going to make its way to the police chief, back to me, and then back to you all.
Any further questions, Brian?
Tim, there's language in here about the SRO having to have the same level of training as school employees have if they're going to participate in a physical restraint.
Yeah.
Is our current SRO already up to speed with that same training?
That is interesting that you raised that up because that was one of the conversations that Chief had brought up, is that he also undergoes training as it relates to what all police officers have to have in regards to physical. We did say that we would be most willing to include Officer Roman in our trainings that we do within the district. He has not been a part of those, but the police department welcomed him to be a part of it, but they have standard operating procedures on restraints within the police department that they have to follow as well. Okay, so we would not, our position, and we had shared this with Chief, would be that any type of, there is a formal process that our staff have been trained with, administrators and staff, and how they handle it. There's roles and responsibilities that different individuals have. And we don't feel comfortable that he has an understanding of all those roles and responsibilities. So we wouldn't include Officer Roman on that. Our faculty and staff would be the ones who would be handling it. With that being the case, if there was ever a circumstance of which we needed the police, his involvement, he has his own trainings as to how he would physically engage with students.
It would seem to me that if we're going to adopt this as policy, then we're either going to have a plan going forward that he's completely hands off when it comes to restraints under every single circumstance, no matter what, or he's got to get the same level of training. Because this policy is going to compel that, right?
Yeah, so we're going to we're going to provide that training for him, but his role, unless it's really engaging in it as a police officer, he would not have a role in the formal restraints that we would do, the restraints or seclusions. We're going to handle those at the school level. It's the ones that we're engaging with him because there is a police matter, that this has gotten to be extremely physical, of which the training that he already has, that's what he is going to employ in those moments. Okay.
And my other question too, when it comes to, actually, two more questions, I think. When it comes to the reporting of investigations and what the SRO's report shall include, there's a whole lot of details there. And it looks like this is reporting for the sake of data collection. It makes me wonder, the student's name isn't involved in that. That's purposeful?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in that case, yeah, the report that is going to be just for informational purposes.
It is.
Yeah.
So go to, and have you looked at, go to Form A, it's on page 10 and 11. This was what was recommended by councils to be utilized. Obviously, this is a worry for police departments, and you saw most recently where a neighboring school district did file some language that they are trying to get this element of it appealed through the legislature to have it be removed. This has raised a lot of concerns. Obviously, the police department dealing with criminal matters relevant to juveniles, a lot of that record keeping and so forth is not at the disposal, of the general public. In our case here, because we have an SRO and we have now a legislature that's saying we need to put together documentation to be able to share with boards of education relevant to this, that we have to be very careful with what types of information we're putting on here. So the removal of the names is important. But the issue that we would run into in a district like Suffield is that we have anywhere from, I would say, 5 to maybe 10 matters over the course of the school year, which the police department actually get actively involved with. By date, we run the risk of us knowing, all of you members of the Board of Education, because you're so in tune with what's going on in the schools, and we have such a small population, where you may reasonably conclude who that matter was. So that's where Attorney Antonetti said, your best bet is to try, and as long as you can get the board to support that, is to collect the information over time. And then periodically, not just every month that it comes in, bring it to the board, because you would reasonably conclude, perhaps gather it over the course of a year and then do an annual update to the Board of Education that includes all of this information. Then it becomes a little less there'll be a little less chance that you'd be able to see exactly who it was, where we're trying to protect the identity of children.
Ultimately, in my mind, addressing it on a case by case basis isn't of real value to a board. It's looking at bigger numbers over a bigger span of time anyhow. And then the one last question that I have, of all the detail that's given about these incidents, the only thing that I see, missing, or maybe my eyes going over it, is mention of communication with families. And it would seem to me like these are all matters that really should rise to the level of communication and even documentation of efforts to communicate with family, what resources were, provided to the families. But I'll make a note of that. Sitting here as a representative of the families in town.
Yeah.
There's no reason we would have to not vote on this if you were gonna add language for that. Okay, so assuming there's no more questions. We have a motion and a second on the table, so unless there's further discussion, I'm gonna call for a vote. Okay, all those in favor of approving the MOU, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. I think we lost Glenn, so we are down to 5.
Glenn left at 8:45, Maureen.
Thanks, Melissa.
Yep.
And
Thank you, everyone.
thank you for that, everyone. All right, home stretch, subcommittee reports, curriculum and instruction, Melissa Finnegan.
I'll actually be giving both. Glenn asked me to give the finance one too, so I'll do a quickie
Thank you.
here on this one. All right, so for the curriculum instruction, we had several people from McAllister and Spalding meet, as well as the committee, to discuss the new health standards from the state. We, kind of just worked through them a little bit to kind of understand what they're asking of us as far as adding to the curriculum. They're going to convene and sort of write up what their curriculum is that they do, how they're incorporating the standards and bringing a little bit more detail to us, probably at a future meeting in like maybe June timeframe. Is that correct, Michelle? I think around that time. There was still a lot of open discussion on it. So I think we're still trying to tighten up like how it's going to look in Spalding and McAllister. And that's it for that. And then can I do finance?
Yes, please.
Awesome. All right. So finance, most of the stuff, Eric Remington already covered, but I will just a few other little things. We did approve an additional para that was in regards to an updated IEP. So that one is all set. We had approved the budget transfer, which you guys already voted on for the trainer. We have started to do some filming and some other work within Suffield Middle School in regards to the Suffield Middle School project. So more to come on that. We are, one of the issues that really, we did talk about was the excess cost reimbursement, which they've already noted. Obviously we're supposed to get 100%. In the past, we've gotten 75. We've gone sort of with that average and now it's down to 70. So hopefully we can get a little bit more understanding in regards to that decrease when the legislative committee meets going forward. We talked about the agri-science, which, Tim also brought up in regards to 2 students that are looking to come to the program. He is working with that school and those students to ensure that transportation is covered for the next 4 years. So it's not our responsibility and so forth. So he is working on that. So more to come. And I think that's the majority of it. And that's it.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's move on to the board liaison reports. Crack with Sam Toscan.
Nothing major to report.
Okay. Agri-science is James, who is not here, so we can table that. Cabe, Melissa Finnegan.
Sorry, nothing to report at this time.
All right, let's move on to future business. We have an item here, artificial intelligence. We will find a place for that at some point. Does anyone have any additions for future business? I do have one. I would like a review of world language department. And I will try to put together an email that says kind of what detailed information I think would be helpful for the board review. Okay, moving on, public comment. Anyone in the room? Anyone on the Zoom? Okay, move on to board member comment. Let's do it in the same order. Deb, do you have any?
I'm sure, just real quickly, thankful for all this discussion tonight, as late as it is. Just would like to, in board member comment, add my support for consideration of adding Indigenous Peoples Day to our calendar.
Yeah.
In addition to Columbus Day. And as well as engaging in some discussion as to whether perhaps we should move in the direction of other districts and considering adding a Jewish high holiday to our calendar as well.
Thanks, Brian.
Just want to go on the record with thanks to the Home Depot for their generous donation to our school district.
Sam.
No comment.
Melissa.
No comment at this time.
Me either. So we can move to our final motion. Who wants it?
Brian, I move that we adjourn.
Anyone second that?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Meeting's adjourned at 9:39. Thanks all for coming and staying.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, bye.
You're a senior.
It's for there and one of them got in an argument with another. Oh, mom. Yeah, mom.
Oh, yeah. Get him out of here. I get the same message actually during our meeting.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, come on.
but I see you're still at your meeting, so I'll be going to pick up the kid. And I'm like,